Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Brofessionals on a very special day and time. Normally, we do this show. It's an alternating show on each of the Brofessionals channels on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. But today, you are here for the day drinking show. So the boys will all be having their libations, and I am encouraging you guys to have yours. We're going to be doing what if questions. And if you have some, throw them up there. Make them super chats, if you will. That'd be awesome too. And we'll read them and get answers as well. So let's bring them into the room as they showed up on the stream here. Here we have Andy Smith, professional number one.
Well, hello.
We have Lefty Lepresti, the great Aaron Lepresti.
Thank you. I'm not going to tell you what's in my canteen. You'll have to guess.
So we can use any kind of imagination we want.
Exactly.
It's very hardcore. That's all I'm going to say to everybody.
Jolt Cola.
And speaking of hardcore, here comes the new Irishman himself, Mr. William O'Tucci.
Top of the morning to you. I'm actually PKM Tucci.
Which we'll be joined by Art Bear and Dan Fraga a little bit later. As soon as they pop in, we'll throw them up on the screen.
Art hasn't gone to bed since last night, right?
Why was he up late?
He was on a bender, I heard.
Oh, really?
Big time bender, yeah.
Oh, good for him.
Now, I missed Billy. I missed your reveal. So, how much Irish do you actually have in you?
Well, if you look at the PKM. As Thomas Lennon said, that I am from the three angriest islands in all of Europe. I'm Sicilian.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 42% Sicilian plus another 2% Italian.
Yep.
And I'm 24% Scotch and 16% Irish.
Wow, almost a fifth.
That's a good bit. That's good.
So he said, congratulations. He said, you're from the three angriest islands in all of the world, and you are the perfect killing machine.
Well, we already knew the perfect killing machine.
I'll drink to that.
I traced my roots to Sicily as well. So
I'm all Sicilian except for Northern Italian. We have 6% Northern Italian. And then I have 3% German, 2% Norwegian. And I guess maybe that's because the Vikings settled down south. And then 5% English only.
How about that?
Wow. I thought I was all English. That's what I was told by my mother, but apparently not. I'm a scoot. I don't know either.
Look at him. And what do you have in there? Is that whiskey or bourbon or what?
Well, I'm having it. Well, it's not St. Patty's Day anymore, so I'm having back me Scotch. So I have a little bit of Aberlour, 12 single malt.
Single malt, nice.
Well, and so salute, but. I did what Thomas Lennon told me to do because I said, what should I do on St. Patty's Day? It's my first time as an Irishman. He said, and so I went down to the sea and I wrote the saddest play ever.
Hey, can you do something about that light behind you?
Yeah. Well, the problem is
your backlight is screwing you over here.
The way the sun is coming now, it sucks. So I'm gonna have to. If I scoot over here, I can do that.
Yeah, there you go.
Better. Yeah.
You have this angelic halo over your head now. See,
thank you.
That's the Irish blood.
The patron saint of everywhere. So he told me, and I did it. I went down to the sea and I wrote the saddest play. The saddest play ever. And then I went home and I threw it in the fire because it just was the saddest play ever. But then I said, oh no, I've got to retrieve it because it's the best play. And I burned my hands in the fire. I just wept. I wept all day.
Yeah, the next thing you'll be having is Finnegan's Wake played at your wake.
You know what, Finnegan? I'm sorry I missed the Star Trek episode because Finnegan is by far my favorite Star Trek character. Jimmy Boy! Jimmy Boy!
He's an annoying little leprechaun. I gotta say,
he was great.
Hey, bringing up Star Trek real quick. I don't know if you noticed this, Graham, but you're the guy. If you didn't notice this, then I'm one up on you on Star Trek lore. Ooh. But I happened to watch Assignment Earth yesterday.
Okay,
and when Terry Garrett calls the two cops to come in when Kirk and Spock go into the office and demand to know where Mr. Seven's at, and she calls the cops, right? The
Right.
two police show up.
Yeah.
One of those cops is Finnegan.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah,
The
I
young
do
cop.
remember seeing
There's
that.
a quick close-up of him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the same guy who played Finnegan.
Jimmy boy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. A lot of those guys showed up in other episodes as
Yep.
other characters, you know. It's
Yep.
kind of cool.
Yep. And in fact, in that episode too, there's Mr. Leslie, right? Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
He's walking around just as an extra in a gold shirt in the hallway, and then shows up in a red shirt later as Mr. Leslie in the same episode.
That's funny.
Yep.
He got killed too in an episode, but then he came back in another one.
I know. He did. And well, who's the red-haired guy? What was his name? He died in he got killed in the Gorn episode, but then he also died in Obsession from the cloud, the vampire cloud. What was his name with the red hair?
The red hair. Not the guy who used to man the transporter.
No. He was a security guy, but he was in more than he died as the same character in more than one episode.
Oh.
Check it out. Check out the beginning of the Gorn episode. He's the one who stands up and goes, "Captain, I can see," and he goes, "Bzzz,"
yeah, that guy. Okay.
He's the guy that he didn't die immediately in Obsession when the cloud came over him. He survived a little bit into the sick bay, and he was like, Kirk is like, "Did you smell anything?" "Yes, honey, sickening sweet." But he died twice and actually that's the same season, isn't it? Yeah. No, Arena was first season, so they brought him back to the second season. So, but he died twice as a security officer.
That's
And what if he just a real like gold bricker, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not getting involved in that. I have to figure that out." And he's like,
Well, that's a good segue, Billy, because you asked a what if question, and that's what we're going to be doing today, what if questions. So let's start with our first question, and the other guys can pop in when they do, and we'll throw them at him. So here's the first what if question. We'll start with Andy, we'll go down to Aaron, and then we'll go over to Billy. Okay? So the way that comics are going right now, it's pretty inevitable from what I hear from people in the know that at some point Marvel and DC are going to license out their characters. So what if Marvel or DC license their property to you? A particular property, what one would you choose and what would you do with it?
That is a really good question. The first one that comes to mind is Excalibur. The team that Chris Claremont and Alan Davis did, because I always loved Captain Britain and that revised costume, not the red one that has the lion, shield, because that's way too much of a pain to draw, but the one Alan Davis designed.
Right.
I always liked that costume. I liked the team with Megan and Nightcrawler and Rachel Summers. There were somebody else was on it too, I think. No, that was the core team. What I do with it, I mean, that's a really good question because I don't consider myself too much of a writer. So first, I would probably work with a good friend of mine, Rob Snyder, the guy that I'm doing First Man stuff with, because he's got a really good head on his shoulders for comic stuff, and he's definitely has that Silver Age bent when it comes to his writing. I would definitely locate it in Europe and not bring the stuff over here, just because I liked how that was done with Shadowcat. Duh, Shadowcat was in Excalibur too. That's right. So that's the one I was forgetting. Would
you hire Claremont to come in and write it for you, or would you do it yourself? What would you do about that?
Well, like I said, I could talk to my buddy Rob, who was scripting the First Man stuff, because I think he has some really good ideas. Or, yeah, I mean, if I could hire anybody, sure, I'd work with Chris because I've worked
it's a
with
what
him
if,
twice.
so you can hire anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could see working with Chris because that's the stuff I enjoyed on it.
Okay.
From the late 80s when they did it, because it was the run of Excalibur before I got into the business, so like 88, 89, I think it was. And I'd stick with those designs. So basically the Nightcrawler design was the Dave Cockrum one. Shadowcat. I think Davis might have tweaked the costume some, but I liked all the designs they had back then, just from a fan standpoint. So I would stick with those designs as well, and probably try and do something with them as a team book.
Okay. How about you, Lefty?
Well, that's a tough question, isn't it? I do want to say though that Excalibur was my favorite X book. That and X Factor with Louise and Walt working on it were the only ones. I never read regular X-Men, so I just thought that was interesting that Andy had picked Excalibur because that was one of my favorite series. Of course, I love Alan Davis's art, so I'm sure that had a lot to do with it as well. But the character dynamics in there were really quite good. It was really a good read.
Right.
I often, as I'm sure some of us do, or maybe most of us do, we kind of fantasize about the idea of what if I was in charge of Marvel? And I know that's a bigger question than what you're asking. But I would, and I have an answer to that as well, but I won't get into that now. I'll stay on course here.
Is that a different question, Graham?
Actually, I had considered that question.
But can we address that too? Because I'm kind of leaning towards that as well. If we can combine them, maybe, or no.
Well, let me just quickly.
We'll save it as a separate question. Let's go through the ones I have.
Okay. I would take, and then I'm really torn here. I would take either Captain America or Spider-Man. And because Spider-Man was my favorite growing up, but Captain America was probably my second favorite growing up. And I think Captain America has been more bastardized than any of their characters recently and really needs to be taken back on course. Because regardless of what your politics are, and I don't mean this to be a political statement, it's just regardless of what your politics are, you're talking about a guy who was born in World War II and should be a staunch conservative regardless of circumstances around him. That doesn't mean he bends over for the government or anything like that, but that's who his character should be. It should be reflective of an old school mentality. But at the same time,
certainly morally.
Yes, morally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And which would cause him major conflicts with today's culture. And that would be really some interesting stuff. You know? I think, but Spider-Man was my favorite growing up. So it's kind of like, I'm going to take Captain America because I think he needs the most help right now.
Okay.
And I would go back to his roots. And I think that's probably the answer to any question, isn't it? I mean, because comics have gone so far off the rails in the last couple of years. It's like all these characters need to go back to their roots. And I would just start over, but I would start over with a Stan Lee, Jack Kirby sort of approach to the character. And I would stay true to the character, but still have him, because I really think there's an interesting dynamic of how he would be dealing with today's culture, because it would be totally different than what he was used to and what he would expect. And I think there's some really good stuff in there. But I also think that comics in a lot of ways have gotten away from supervillains and things like that, which are really what made these guys great, is that they were bigger than life and they were dealing with situations that were bigger than life. I'm not interested in reading about the troubles in my own life. I deal with them daily. When I read comics or something or go to a movie, I want something bigger and beyond what I experience. Right. I don't need this sort of moralizing and cultural moralizing and trying to teach someone a lesson or something beyond, specifically. I mean, I'm talking about, and when I say a lesson, I'm talking about cultural lessons, not moral lessons. Moral lessons are always important. And I just think getting the character back to his roots so he really represented what he was supposed to represent when he was created. And then how he would deal with those situations, that he's faced with today, which are huge challenges. So,
okay, you're hired.
Okay, there you go.
All right, Billy, what do you got?
I'm kind of on the lines with Lefty over here. Is that I think I would get Captain America, and what I would do is I would go the opposite. I would make him really progressive. I would make him, a champion of say homeless, runaway LGBTQ children, people that are, the runaways, the homeless, and I would have him protecting the homeless from all these Yeah, no, I'm kidding. That's what they do. In the garbage can as a thick shield. No,
I was just saying, isn't that what's happening over the summer?
that's what's happening. I love
Dude,
that.
I was waiting
Here he is,
for you
this
to-
blue-eyed, this blue-eyed white kid who's now going to be the new Captain America. That's going to defend, runaways and the homeless and protect the homeless. And I don't know if I sent you guys the message when we were discussing it or something, but I'm like, well, who's the biggest predators of homeless? That's other homeless. Mm-hmm. And who picks on, say, the homeless or these, transgender kids and stuff like that? Those are inner city kids, inner city teens and stuff like that. So you're going to have this white kid, Joshua, whatever his name is, he's going to go in. Is he going to start beating up POCs? Because I'm not seeing too many rural, I guess the so-called, cis jocks coming in from, the rural communities or the suburbs driving in 2 hours just to, hey, let's go into the city and beat up some homeless people.
Let's roll some bums.
Yeah, let's roll some bums. Why not? Let's do that. Who's this kid going to fight? And then I think the funny thing is if you look at him, and I've seen, I've lived in New York City for 10 years. And, a lot of the homeless aren't, the old man sitting there. These homeless, they're jacked up on drugs. A lot of them are big dudes, angry dudes. They would throw that little frigging kid through the frigging window. He wouldn't last 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Well, the kid's going to throw
beat him with his garbage can like they were Sonny Corleone to Carl.
The kid the trash can lid as a shield painted stuff on.
But I digress.
Throw your trash can lid at me so I can just bat it out of the way.
But what I would do is similar to you. I would go with Captain America, and I would make Captain America more of what he was when he was created. Because a lot of today, these writers, and I don't think, and most villains, a lot of times villains don't realize they're the villains. So a lot of these angry people on Twitter, a lot of the ones that are for, pushing this cancel culture thing, they're the true villains because they're like, if you guys remember The Incredibles, the film Incredibles, with the kid who becomes whatever his name is. I forget the name, Sinestro, or whatever his name is. And these are the ones, what's his name?
Oh, I don't know, but I know who you're talking about.
The character, right?
Yeah,
Buddy.
Syndrome, isn't it Syndrome or something?
Syndrome, yeah. I think his name was Buddy or something like that.
Yeah.
But now he's what the villains do is that the villains are these mousy, evil, small, just awful people. And who they pin? They hate the big, strong champion. You know what I mean? Good guy. And they're the ones tying him up, or they're the ones that attack. They're the ones that go after those that can't protect themselves to get their points across. It's what I think they're doing with this cyberbullying that's going on right now. And all of these the people that say they're the SJWs or whatever, they've become 10 times the bullies. They so much espouse to hate.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And, the thing is that they still haven't gotten over. Now, I'm not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I didn't take crap from anybody when I was a kid. My mother, my older brothers, they would have kicked the crap out of me if I did. If I came home that some kids picked on me and I didn't stand up for myself, So, but these are the guys that never did. A lot of them, they never did stand up for themselves. And they've harbored this hate, and they still hate those 12-year-old kids who might have picked on them. And you know how adolescence is. It's very primal. It's very primitive. It's the lowest common your lowest form of evolution, if you will, because we all evolve as we grow up, as we grow. So that those kids have moved on. Those 12-year-olds that might have picked on them, have moved on, and they've grown up. A lot of them have become, most of them have become productive members of society. A lot of those bullies, they end up going into the service, to fire departments, things like that. They've moved on, but those kids that they picked on that never stood up for themselves, they just can't get over it. And they're adult in age only, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're very dangerous, and they just don't see that they really are. They're the bad guys. Mm-hmm. There's a point, there had to be a point in the war, right? When one German turned to the other and said, "Do you think maybe we're the bad guys in this?" Did it ever occur to you? Do you ever think about that? Maybe we're wrong.
I'm sure many of the Wehrmacht thought that way.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
It was the hardcore,
Yeah, but these people, again, that they tweet, and you see them, they tweet 5-10 times a day. That's all they have. And then they'll get a few hundred likes, and that encourages them, or they'll get a few thousand subscribers, and that encourages them. And that empowers them. And the thing though is what if it cost $1 every time you gave a like? Because those people have a hell of a lot less likes. Because there's people that are attacking, and we've had this conversation before. There's people that are attacking the that are they're always negative, they're always hate, they're always attacking. They'll never realize that they're that they're in the wrong. I don't think.
All right, so you want Captain America, and you want him to start kicking SJW.
Yeah, I want Captain. I just want Captain America again, like Aaron was saying, that he's a man out of time. He should have those 1940s Northeastern values, that he grew up with in New York City. Very accepting, a real melting pot in New York City in the 1940s. If he was born in the 20s, if you will, because he, technically Captain America probably born 1925, 24, 25, 26. So he would be growing up in a very, very diverse community, and went to and wanted to go to war to fight. And I'm sorry that I went off on a tangent. I apologize. You just triggered something in me.
All right. So
now, what about you, Graham?
I would take the Fantastic Four.
We all knew that was coming.
Yeah. and I would ground them in the modern age. Because the Fantastic Four came out of the space race, and we have a wonderful opportunity to replicate that now because we have a space race going on. It's not us against the Russians; it's corporate space race, as Elon Musk and Boeing and these other corporations are vying for those lucrative contracts from NASA and the government to start making private space flights possible. So Reed Richards is this millionaire, and he wants in on that contract, but he has to prove his rocket is viable for them. So that's why he skipped. That's why he underdoes the shields, because he's in a hurry to win, to get there. And so he has his, we get the usual crew. That Sue was an engineer, though, that worked on the project. Her brother Johnny also worked on it, and Ben was the pilot, and his old buddy. And they go up there and they become the Fantastic Four. So that grounds it here today.
Because that gives it Reed's fault too. That gives him that.
Yeah, it gives him a guilt complex too.
Yeah,
what happened to Ben, and so that's why he's always trying to make it up to him. So there's that schism there too, which plays into that early dynamics with the Fantastic Four. And then I would give it that the whole exciting adventurer aspect is what the Fantastic Four evolved into, untold worlds and adventure and stuff like that. Not superhero crime fighters per se, but adventurers, trying to break boundaries and stuff like that. And I'd get rid of the kid. Reed and Sue don't have a kid in my version. I think that's a weight, a dead weight. And I would just
two kids now.
Oh yeah, okay. So I mean, I would pull it back in and make the Fantastic Four accessible for one, and exciting and adventurous again. So that would be mine. Okay, so.
That's a really good idea about how to update it, but still keep it at its core what it really was. I think that's a really good idea.
Thank you.
Dr. Mask wants to know, what about Doom? How would he play a role in your new Fantastic Four?
Well, Doom, the original version of Doom, being a college roommate of Reed's, would still all of that would still be into play because it still works. That doesn't have to be updated per se. So yeah,
it would be cool if he was the Elon Musk. If Victor Von Doom became like an Elon Musk, he became that.
Right. Yeah, he would be one of those guys.
Richard Brandt. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the second what if question: what if you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self? What wisdom have you learned in this business that you would tell yourself?
Oh, man.
Uh-oh. Shelly's calling me. This could be good.
That's a good one.
Well, we're on right now, so I told him Shelly's calling. So
I think it would I guess for myself, it would have to be a little more, be more assertive. because I wasn't that assertive back then when I first got into the business and stuff. I was just more like, okay, yes. Oh, thank you. You know what I mean? I was just so happy to have the job and stuff that it was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. May I have another? Yes, sir. May I have another? And basically, don't do that, and just, be more assertive when it comes to, the jobs you want, and go after them more, and not just be like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll just take that. Okay. And then I think the other, another big one that I've reflected on is, especially, my first monthly book was at Marvel, and I stayed on it for only 10 issues. And then, they offered me this mini series for an event type thing. And I actually originally took it, but then I left it because I went over and did something with Eric Larson at Image. And, looking back on it, and this was after Image, the big money was gone. I mean, I got a better page rate, but literally all the books pretty much settled down. And if you weren't one of the top ones, there weren't really royalties. So I'd tell myself, do the miniseries at Marvel, stick it out, and stay more long-term to solidify yourself, because I bounced around a lot. And I think if I might have just stayed at Marvel, like some other people that started around the time I did, it would have helped me more, maybe, to solidify.
Okay.
Going back with the 20-year-old, version of how things worked out,
Mm-hmm. Well, with time and age comes wisdom.
Yes.
And so that's I think is the thing that I quite interesting. So Billy has gone dark on us here. So Billy, let's throw it to you.
Yeah, I fortunately for me, I couldn't get hired by Marvel and DC. They didn't like my style. It didn't match theirs. I was offered an annual if I could draw like Jim Lee, and I just couldn't. Travis Charest, before he became Travis Charest, was able to draw like Jim Lee, but I just couldn't. I didn't have the ability, and I really didn't want to draw like him. Right. So I would tell myself to stick with my instincts, because you want to hear the saddest story is that in 1997, there's a new, publicly traded company hit the stock market called Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You told us the story.
And I told you the story, and I wish I put that $20,000 into Amazon that I wanted to. And I second guessed myself, because it would be worth, $23 million today. And I would be that guy to buy Marvel, to buy DC and say, "What do you guys want?" But I would just say follow my instincts, to be honest with you. Yep, really follow my instincts and not second guess myself, and not listen to others that don't. It's that haven't accomplished what you've accomplished. Mm-hmm. And I got too influenced by that, because I started then hanging out with a lot of people I love to this day. But when I first came into the industry, I was friends with Brian Pulido, Jeff Smith, Terry Moore, because the only people I knew were the other self-publishers.
Right.
Then I became friends with the Image guys, which was great too, like Mark Silvestri, Jim Lee, and they were still doing the same thing I was doing, but living in New York and in the city. Then I became friends with all the Marvel and DC freelancers. And I love those guys, but they had never done what I did. So I would run ideas by them about wanting to do this. Like, oh man, you can't do that. That's crazy, because they didn't realize, because we had done, at that point I probably sold 2 million comic books. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that was it. Just
they were entrenched in the corporate mentality.
Right. And I wasn't, but that's why I hung out with them. They influenced me, because I'm like, yeah, maybe that is a little crazy. Why am I doing so well? Yeah. This can't last. This can't last. You second guess yourself, and it was very unhealtby.
Okay.
And they meant no ill will about it. It was
their perspective.
Yep.
Yeah. How about you, Aaron?
Well, okay. Now, how far can I go back till I'm giving advice? Is this
20? 20. 20.
Yeah, the age is 20. I mean, like, what? You're the young Aaron Presti breaking into the business. What do you tell that guy?
Well, I think I, as you guys know, I ended up going to film school, And one of the regrets I have now, because if I see how my life has turned out, that I should have gone either into art school, or I should have just tried to jump into comics and forget the whole film thing. Although I had a great time at film school, it didn't necessarily advance my career that I have now, right?
Okay.
So that would be one thing, is if I could go back to actually 18, when I was making the decision between, should I continue to pursue my love of comics or should I try and pursue film, I would slap myself around a little bit and say, hey, dude, you've been an artist your entire life up to this point of being 18, do that. And I think as a result, I would have broken into comics earlier. And then I might have had a shot at some of this bigger money that I missed out on in the early 90s, is coming into the comic industry right after all the great royalties, right?
Right.
And, but also, I think the other important thing that I would tell myself is not to actually, number one, kind of along the lines of what Billy's saying, is think bigger and think and don't put all my eggs in one basket. Okay. Because I got so preoccupied with trying to make it at Marvel and or DC, to be a name within the industry, to get a certain level of accomplishment within the industry, that I've been on that path my entire career. So it's kind of like gosh, I remember saying when I worked at CrossGen and I was 38, or something, when I started at CrossGen, and I remember telling Bart Sears this. I was like, dude, if I'm not out of comics by the time I'm 40, shoot me, or something like that, and here I am 57 still in comics. And it wasn't so much get out of comics as it was get out of the grind of comics, whether that was independent publishing, maybe doing some other things like, when illustration was still a thing, whether that was book covers or book illustration or writing my own books and illustrating. I'm doing some different things. I did a little bit of that, but not enough that I could, that it's now in the situation we're in right now with the industry sort of imploding around us, that I can just jump into this and say, well, screw comics. They're not there for me anymore. I'll go do this, because I put so much time and effort into comics. So I would have pushed myself to diversify a little bit more and to think bigger sooner, rather than continue to just kind of get comfortable and go, well, okay, they offered me Justice League, I'll do that. Instead of maybe when I should have been working on something 20 years ago more, and I was to a certain degree, but I never got far enough along to actually do something with it. I've got developed characters and developed scripts, but I've never, to this point, haven't done anything with them. Now I have to.
Yeah.
Part of the hamster wheel of this business is the grind, and that is you're constantly chasing the next paycheck, so you don't have, because the pay isn't that great. So and the time that has to be put into the creation of the artwork is labor intensive. So you're constantly chasing that paycheck to keep the lights on, and there's very little time to expand upon vanity projects or future projects that could pay off for you in the future.
Right. That's exactly right.
And that's changing.
Can I ask you guys? You guys were all in the industry before me? Were any of you friends with any of the Image founders? Like, was there a chance that any of you could have been an Image?
No.
An Image? No, you were
no.
Nope.
Even if I was, there'd still be no chance I could be an Image, because my style was completely the antithesis of what Image was. So.
Yeah,
I don't think that would have worked for either of us.
Can I have one more, if I may? What I would have told myself?
Yeah.
So in 1995, Tia Carrera, the actress, and her husband contacted me, and they wanted to do She in the Worst Way. Right. So I met with them, and Eli Samaha, her husband at the time, was putting together his first film, which was called The Immortals, and he wanted to put She. Now, this was 95. We had just sold the She Cyblade book that I think sold 250,000 copies, and then I did the Senryaku book, another 150,000. Crazy. Needless to say, we had a lot of money. And I remember I had dinner with them, and he was trying to impress me, and he's making this new film. And I walked out of there, and I said, you know what? I said to Keith, my lawyer, I said, what if I give this guy $50,000 and tell him I want to direct his movie? Because he had Joe Pantoliano. He had, I think Chris Rock was in it. Tony Curtis, Eric Roberts, Tia Carrera. And he's like, nah, Billy, I don't know. This guy's, he's a little off. I don't really trust him. You know, he owned dry cleaning at the time and the club, the Roxy. You ever saw the movie The Night the Roxy was based on Billy? And he's like, yeah, Billy, let's just walk away from that. I don't know. But just to think, if I would think that of myself, what if I did put that? Because that movie cost $500,000 to make and grossed $8 million.
Wow.
So just imagine I could have directed my first film. It would only have cost me $50,000. I would have made all these royalties on it, and I would have directed Tony Curtis and all these great actors in my first film. Because they hired some video director.
Well, you're not counting on creative accounting in how that works in Hollywood.
Yeah, I know.
There's not a single movie in Hollywood history that made a profit, you know.
Well, that's how working with you. You're right. But I would have been in because then he created franchise films that made Get Carter and the whole 9 yards, and he produced. So, you know, I look at that. I'm like, if I just made that, maybe I could have directed an episode of Band of Brothers, and maybe I could have done this and that, you know. But
what if?
This is a what if, right? So
it's a what if. You never know.
Back on that real quick. I did an interview when I was in film school. I interviewed this director team, or interviewed with this director team. They're looking for a storyboard artist for the remake of DOA, right? With Meg Ryan and
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
And so I went in and showed them my stuff. And they this looks great. You're hired. And I'm like, great. I said, well, you know, I've got school during the day, so I can come by in the evening or whatever. They're like, no, dude, this is like full time, 24/7 for 3 months or whatever until we get the picture done. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. I'm in school. And then I would just walk away. And the dumb thing is, I'm in school to get that kind of job, and then I turned it down when I should have just dropped out of school, taken the gig, and then, you know, who knows? You know what I mean? It was just dumb.
Can we change Lefty Lepresti?
All right, so
loser
let me answer the question.
Lepresti?
I haven't done the answer question. So what I would tell my 20-year-old self is be fearless.
Yes.
Don't second guess yourself.
Yeah.
Don't try to compete against your idols. You know, be confident in your work, because once you become confident in your work, that's when the work really sails. It really takes off, because it's like that smell of desperation when you know somebody who's really desperate for work or desperate for something. You can smell it around them. Yeah. And it's the same thing with your artwork. The lines you put down are not they're not confident. And so the readers can look at that and say, you know, this guy's not confident. So that's what I would tell myself, was to be fearless. You know, don't try and please editors. Try to please yourself. Because editors come and go, and most of the times they're wrong.
That's great advice, because I dealt with that really early on in my career, was just not having the confidence in what I was doing when I was working at Marvel, and it was getting to work at Malibu, where they just sort of were a hands off and let me do my thing, where I sort of kind of got into my own. But at Marvel, when I started, I was terrified. Every pencil line I laid down, I was like, I'm going to get fired if I do this wrong. And it just turned out some really bad work because of it. And I ended up fulfilling my, you know, I got canned a couple times at Marvel in those first couple years I was there, simply because my samples looked really good. But when I was actually under the pressure of doing it, I just choked, because
that's fulfilling prophecy.
It's crippling. That self-doubt is crippling.
I think every young creator has that, though. You know, starting out,
because confidence comes from success.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't have success yet. So any false confidence you have is just your own ego. You know, so
but then again, on the other end, guys, for anyone out there who's maybe a young artist or something like that, don't be that other guy. Don't be on the opposite end of Aaron, because I was at New York Comic Con 2 years ago, the last New York Comic Con, and here comes this School of Visual Arts student, 19 years old, real cocky. Yeah. I've got my big booth, and, you know, we just brought out She Again. Things are going really well. And he just comes up and he's looking at my books, and he's like, so is this, you know, looking at the booth, he's like, so is this your art? I'm like, yeah, you know. And he's like, so you did all this? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it's pretty good. And just his arrogance. He's like, so you know, I got my art. Well, you want to look at it? I'm like, nah, that's all right. Yeah, but like, don't be, you know, because I'm like, of course, let me see your work, but like, don't be that, you know, that cocky art student.
Right.
I'm like, well, thank you for validating the past 25 years of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
My kids through college and everything. Thanks a lot. Yeah. You know, it's pretty good.
It reminds me of a story Jimmy Buffett told one time when he was starting out in Key West. There was a guy that was sitting on a street corner playing guitar, and that's how he was earning money. And Buffett came up to him, and the guy said the guy was a killer guitarist. He was really good. So he went up to him to talk to him. He says, yeah, I'm a musician too. And the guy wouldn't give him the time of day. He was too conceited, you know, about his own skills or something. And Buffett said to him, he says, you know what? You may be a great guitarist, but I'm a writer and a poet. And someday I'm going to be a star and you're going to still be on the street corner.
Yeah. So don't be that guy. Don't be Aaron. Don't be that guy on the street corner who's still there. Well, who died on that very street corner.
That's right.
10 years ago in Key West.
Playing his guitar with one hand.
Yeah. with the gangrene in the foot.
Yeah.
And the gout surging through his body.
Yeah.
I will say though, having a certain amount of insecurity about your work continues to push you to get better.
Yeah.
There is that. But there has to be a point where you're confident in what you're doing and saying, you know what, I am professional, I am good enough, I can do this and I can do it my way. But then always looking at other guys and saying, that guy's better than me, I better push harder.
Yeah, there's the fine balance.
So, yeah.
There's that fine balance.
I think that's a little different though.
Yeah. No, it is.
I think
always striving for better. Meaning not being complacent with your work.
Right.
Yeah. I think Darwin Cook had the perfect balance of that because he was the most confident artist, someone who's so confident in his ability, but at the same time, though, he just worked so hard. That's all he did was draw and write, and he just wanted to keep getting better. But he was, I mean, Graham, you know, he wasn't arrogant, anything like that. He loved comics. He loved his craft, but he was very, very confident in his ability. He was that guy with those 5 lines. And it's like, holy shit, you know? And I'm, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh. But like John Romita. Remember John Romita? Put the eraser away.
Yeah. Throw the fucking eraser away.
Throw the fucking eraser away.
Okay, so here's number 3.
Well, hang on a second. Hang on 1 second. There was a great meme cartoon that went around a while back, and it showed this young kid, right? He's like, I practice so much. I want to be, you know, I can't understand why I'm not better. And it showed him, and he had this stack of papers that was maybe about up to his shoulder. You know, I work so hard. I keep practicing. And then the next one is a professional going, I work so hard and this is how I get better. And the room was full of paper, you know what I mean? And so it's this idea of how hard you actually really have to work to continue to not only to keep up, but to get better.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of piggybacking on what Billy was saying. I always saw that cartoon and I went, man, that is so true.
Okay, so number 3. What if you could sit down with a beer with one of your idols? Who would it be? Oh. And this does not have to be a comic idol. Just any idol.
All right, I say on this round, anybody jump in when it comes to them because I'm thinking.
I can jump in here and do
okay,
that.
Aaron. Go ahead.
The one guy I always wanted to talk to, because at heart, I've always really wanted to be more of an illustrator, a painter than a comic book artist, right? Mm-hmm. And so saying Frazetta is too obvious, so I'm not going to say Frazetta, but I'm going to say I would have loved to sit down and talk to James Bama. You know, who did the great Doc Savage covers.
Well, he's still alive, so that could happen.
That's true. I did send him some stuff once. I never heard back from him, just as kind of like you know, I love your stuff. I do this for a living. I'm just not, you know, the total.
Where does he live? Get him on the
he's in Wyoming. He's in Wyoming now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's either Wyoming or Arizona or something.
But his I watched a video, some guy years ago, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was trying to get a series to be picked up by PBS or someplace that he was profiling, illustrators. And his pilot episode was of Bama. And he gave me the videotape to watch. And I realized why it never got picked up, because the only people that really would want to watch it are other artists, right? And there's not that many people, that many artists that could sustain a television show. But it was really interesting watching his technique and stuff. And I was like, man, I would love to sit down and talk to this guy and really get in deep on how he approached what he was doing. And because he has that great sort of realism to his work. But when you look at it really closely, even guys that do these really tight realism, it's just brush strokes, and it's knowing where to put the brush stroke. And sometimes they're not even that tight. When you pull back, it looks like, oh my gosh, it looks like a photograph. You get in here like this, and it's just, and I would just love to have talked to him. I got to talk to Basil Gogos quite a bit at the con later in his life about his technique and stuff, which I always found really interesting. But they were only 20-minute conversations. I'm talking about getting down with somebody for, a couple of weeks and just really picking their brain and understanding how they approach stuff. So that would probably, off the top of my head, that would be mine.
Cool. Andy, you got one yet, or you?
Yeah. Okay. So art-wise, because I thought of two, one art and one non. But art-wise, I'm actually going with a painter as well. But it's J.C. Leyendecker.
Yeah, Leyendecker is one of my guys.
Because his style of painting and his drawing too is so stylized, and especially at that time period.
Yep.
It was just so unique. It wasn't, the drawing itself wasn't, from the photoreal standpoint. The painting definitely wasn't, because of the way he put the brush strokes down. I've only seen two of his original pieces before, both at San Diego.
Oh, you got to go to the Illustration House in New York City.
Yeah.
They have lots of Leyendeckers there.
But it'd be Leyendecker. It's like Aaron said, I would just like to be able to sit for a couple weeks and watch him work and talk about it and just see what I could siphon off. Because, once again, from a distance, even though it's so stylized and it doesn't look photographic, it's all there. But then definitely with Leyendecker, you get up on it and you're just like, these brush strokes that are down.
Well,
and it's just mind blowing.
Leyendecker was, and this is what I've always kind of said as I started getting into him, is like he was the comic book artist for illustrators of his time.
Mm-hmm.
He was, like you said, he was so stylized, and I wouldn't say it was cartoonish, but it was exaggerated to a point that it was almost like Michael Golden-esque. You know what I mean? In terms of his expressiveness and how he did it, and as great as Norman Rockwell was, I still prefer Leyendecker, because Leyendecker.
Oh yeah,
wow. Well, he inspired Rockwell. You look at Rockwell's earliest work; he was ripping off
absolutely.
Leyendecker.
Yep.
Yeah. So that, but then I'm still throwing the second one in. I'd love to sit down with comedian Steve Martin. He's one of my favorites ever since I was a kid.
He's great.
I love Steve Martin's stand up, and when he stopped doing it, I can remember when he stopped doing it, and I still read the few books he's put out. Short stories, the little novellas he's put out and stuff. And if he ever acts, I watch it. And I just, I have his stand-up CDs. I would love to just talk to him, because it's so quirky and so original with what he did. And he was one of the first comedians that would sell out stadiums. Nobody was doing it at that time. And then he came on, and next thing you know, he's getting thousands of people, and other people are like, what the hell? This isn't a nightclub. This is a freaking 4,000 or 5,000
rock
people.
star. Yeah,
rock star, exactly.
My senior year, I got thrown out of English class. It was one of those, maybe a Friday afternoon, when they would have silent reading. The teacher didn't want to do any work, so we all would read. and I was reading Cruel Shoes.
Oh God, I love that.
And I was crying. I just kept laughing, and I never read anything like it in my life. And my teacher threw me out of class.
That's
you might have sent me down to the principal or something idiotic like that, or the guidance. I'm like, I'm reading. You have to read this book. This guy is genius.
I've got one of the original copies of that. The dust jacket's all torn. I don't know if it was Cruel Shoes or another one, but the basic gist of this one story he was telling is he was talking about a girl he was dating and she wouldn't call him back. And then as it progresses, things get worse. And I remember one paragraph he writes, he goes, I don't know why you're not writing back to me. Did the note fall off the brick that I threw through your window? What is going on? And it's that type of humor. You're just like, what?
Well, I remember picking that book up when I was, I don't know, maybe 12, when that book came out. I don't know exactly when it was, but I remember in a bookstore just kind of thumbing through it. And this one line, like you said, stuck with me because it was something like, and there he sat in his chair with his lit cigarette, and the last line of the chapter was, and then his lips fell off. It was like the end of the chapter. I was like, what is this?
So there you go.
It's good.
Good stuff.
How about you, Billy?
Your turn, Billy.
Oh, geez. When it comes to art, I guess, or just, I've been fortunate. I've had a beer with Frazetta,
No.
I've had dinner with Frazetta. So, but I'd have to say, if I could have a drink with anyone, well, there are two people. One would be Theodore Roosevelt, for sure. And the second would be Errol Flynn.
Oh, yeah. Well, that wouldn't be one drink then, Billy.
No, yeah. But I want to talk to Errol Flynn about Castro.
Okay.
And his love of, and again, this is, you're talking the late 50s. Everyone thought Castro was a freedom fighter. They were saying he's the next George Washington. Look what he's trying to do. Here he's rising up from the jungles against this oppressive, monarchist dictator, fascist dictator, in Batista. But I'd love to get to drink with Errol Flynn. I would just love to, and then rob someone's body.
Anyway. Yeah. Like I do with Barrymore.
You have to bring Barrymore along with you, right?
Yeah. But that's what it would be. Definitely Errol Flynn. There's not even a doubt in my mind. But my biggest fear is that neither of them would like me, though. So I'd have to try to be quiet. I thank God you guys like me. I'm so happy because I don't shut up.
Well, I'd like to meet. I'd like to sit down with John Wayne.
Oh,
yeah. And I would like to. I'd like to talk about his relationship with Ford and the carousing and the stories that he and Ward Bond would the drinking escapades out on the yachts and stuff. And I think that would be a riot. And the other guy that I'd like to sit down with would be Chuck Yeager.
Oh yeah.
And talk to him about his experiences in the war as a fighter pilot and then as a test pilot and how he felt about being excluded from the Mercury 7 because he had no college. Yeah.
Oh,
well
so
let me.
dumb.
I have if I may, real quick. I met Cliff Robertson, the actor, and he was a big time pilot. So it was a charity thing my wife and I went to at this place, and there was Cliff Robertson, and he was a local who was out east in the Hamptons, and people just meeting and talking to him, and he's like, yeah, and I just said, hello, Mr. Robertson, and a friend of mine introduced me. Oh, this is Billy. He's an artist and a budding filmmaker, and this is when I made my short film like 15 years ago. I was like, oh, and I said, hello, Mr. Robertson. I said, I love your work, but I just have one question to ask you. And he's like, what? I'm like, what's it like to fly a Spitfire? Because he owned a Spitfire.
Oh, wow.
And he lit up like that was the last thing anyone was ever going to ask him. And he's like, I've been standing. He was probably like 85. He's like, I've been staying. You want to sit down for some? I'm like, yeah. So my wife and I sat down with Cliff Robinson for an hour, and he just taught. He's like, he goes, first thing, you don't fly a Spit. You could just see him regaling what it was like to. And he's like, you wear a Spitfire.
Nice.
He's like, I'm gonna get you guys some drinks. What do you want? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, Scotch. And I'm like, yeah, Scotch too. And we were the only 3 people in the whole room to him.
That's cool.
It was just like dragged out. It was a film, like a Long Island Film Expo thing or something, and he was local, and he's like, oh, okay, and like boom, man, you know what I mean, like that, and son of a bitch. I didn't ask for his autograph or take a picture.
Did you ask him why he was so mean to Batman?
Not at all.
Oh,
not.
I always wanted, shame.
About Shane.
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame was a desperado.
Shame on you.
Shame on you, Shame.
So
my second one is Brando. So just because I figure that guy would be nuts.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm going to throw in, and we can if you guys want to throw in a just specific comic book artist. I never met him, and I would love to have been able to meet him and sit down with him. Is John Buscema.
Yeah, I never
met him. I would love, because look, Graham and I went to the Kubert School. So Joe, I'm so glad I can check that off the list.
Yeah.
But John Buscema I never met, and God, I would love to have met him and just sat down and been able to just talk comics with him and like ask him questions till he was like, okay, can you leave?
Thanks, Man of War. Appreciate it, bud.
Thank you, Man of War.
Oh, nice. Oh, and by the way, I was just looking to make sure I had the right visual for a Spitfire. I do like Spitfires. I love the Corsair though.
Oh yeah.
I like when I was a kid, I'd get those metal, the little metal planes that wingspan like about that.
Yeah.
And I had a Corsair, and I just love the way the Corsair looked.
Yeah.
Even better than like
that probably
modern fighter jets.
Yeah, that probably was, and you can have an argument, but if you look here, like in my little studio here, if I go up, there's I have my Battle of Britain.
Oh, nice.
You see my Spitfires, and there's a fairy swordfish, and if we keep going, I don't want to unplug it. I've got, I got a Stuka over there. I don't know if I can get, I'm attached to things I can't.
No, it's okay.
But the Corsair, I made a short film, and it starred a Corsair. It was called Some Trouble of a Serious Nature, and I got to sit in the Corsair, and he flew the Corsair in from South Carolina, and because you look at the Spitfire, probably was the best single prop-driven dogfighter, pure dogfighter of the war, but the Corsair would outperform everything, even the Mustang. Because
really?
it was, and you got to think a Corsair is a Navy fighter, so that had probably an extra 2,000 pounds because they had to build the frame so strong because of the arrestor hook, so it could, when it lands on a carrier,
land on the carriers. Yeah,
and you just imagine a Corsair without that, with that same motor, that the same engine, the R2800 that the Thunderbolt had. You're talking 470 miles an hour in a prop-driven fighter.
Yeah.
That's the Marines flew the Corsair.
Yeah. Yep. So
I like the P-40 Warhawk. And the Corsair are my two favorites.
I love the P-42, especially that was all we had.
It was built right here in Buffalo.
Yeah. Oh, was it
really?
Curtis?
Yep.
Is Curtis up there?
Yeah. Yep. Curtis Wright.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good looking plane.
That stuff, maybe that'd be my subject. Might be World War II planes.
The Flying Tigers and Chenault and the whole the AVG, great stuff.
They're so cool looking. Like even to me, compared to like modern day fighter jets, I love these so much more.
Yeah,
aesthetically.
Like drawing any military hardware, I hate drawing modern military hardware. It's so detailed. It's so hard. I love drawing like World War II and earlier, the airplanes, even the tanks, all the accoutrements and everything.
Yeah, I remember. I went to the at Hendon is the RAF museum in outside of London, and they had the Battle of Britain wing, and you see all the German planes lined up on the right, and then all the British planes lined up on the left that all took part in the Battle of Britain. And you can come from outer space and you just know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are.
Just by the designs.
You get the Spitfires are so beautiful, and you know what I mean, with the elliptical wings and the tan with the tan with the red, white, and blue roundels, and then you got the German planes that are they're angular and they're black and
they're gray. Angry.
Yeah, angry like Irishmen on St. Patrick's Day, like an Irishman.
Papers are not in order.
So, Graham, real quick, because I've had some conflicting reports. Yes. Is it St. Patty's Day or St. Paddy's Day?
Paddy with D's.
Thank you. All right, because I was corrected by a Greek What does he know? Nothing.
Well, what did he say? Did he say T's?
He said it was Patties because I said Patties. And he corrected me and shamed me.
He's wrong
on social media. And
Patty,
I didn't know because I've only been an Irishman for 18 hours.
That's right.
Patty with a T is the female name for Patricia. Patty with a D is Patrick, is the male.
No, thank you. And Boston Queso says the ME-109 with the yellow and gray paint job was beautiful. I disagree with that. It was actually more angry. But it's not an ME-109. It's a BF-109, just for those out there.
All right.
There you go.
All right. So our next question is, what if, and this is becoming more relevant, what if you couldn't work in comics? What would you
right now?
Yeah. Or I'm thinking more in terms of when you were young. And what if you didn't have what it took and you couldn't make it in comics? What would you have done?
Okay, I gotcha.
When I was younger, I always was fascinated with wanting to be a lawyer because I like to kind of argue cases, my case for things and stuff. So back then, it probably would have been lawyer, but I don't know if I had the grades to get into law school or even college for that matter. I would have definitely had to start at my local community college and bust my ass and work my way up. Now, if I could do it, it would be radio, which is a dying thing, but that's kind of like why I'm doing, we all do the YouTube thing. But I say that because in 2008, and I've told a couple, so I don't know who knows it, but back in 2008 for 2.5 years, myself and a couple of my buddies had a radio show on a station here in Charlotte. So it was so much fun just going in 2 hours before the show was on to do the show prep. And then for the 3 hours of the live radio show, and we would take turns running the board and queuing up the songs and stuff. But it was mostly a talk show, and doing that, it was just a blast. So,
Okay.
I love it,
Aaron.
This is an excellent question because obviously, I guess the obvious answer would be, well, I would have gone into film, but I tried to go into film and it didn't work out, so I can't use that either. So if getting away from the arts completely, I would be a chef. I love cooking, and when I married Shelley, I said, talk about confidence, right? Confidence as an artist here and confidence as a cook. I said, I'll do the cooking if you'll do the laundry, because I hate doing laundry. And I still do. I still do all the cooking. The only time I didn't cook was when I worked at CrossGen, because Shelley wasn't working then, and I was in a regular, 9-to-5 situation. So I couldn't, obviously get home in time, make dinner and blah, blah, blah. So she did for about that 1.5 year period of time. But ever since then, before that and after that, I have done the cooking.
And I can attest, he would come into work the next day at CrossGen and be like, if I have to eat that garbage anymore that my wife is making, I just wish I had time to cook.
Oh my gosh.
So I can have a real meal for once.
No, don't be saying that stuff. So no, I would have been, and I don't know that that's necessarily a great career choice, because I don't know, what I'd be at Denny's or something right now. I don't know, but that would be it. I love cooking. So
next time we're down your way, dinner at your house?
Sure.
Brofessionals at Lefties.
That's right. Let me know when you're going to be here so I have time to prepare. But and I'm not a recipe guy, man. I wing it. I am an intuitive cook. So I like
an improv cook.
Yeah, create my own stuff. So
nice.
Anyway,
what about you, Billy?
Man, I think I would have stayed in the military. I was a paratrooper, but I think I would have went to be a Green Beret, be an officer. I would have loved that. But then again, thank God, because I might have gotten blown up by a fucking roadside bomb in some shithole country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
thank God for comics. Thank you all out there. Yeah, no, because I wanted to be a Green Beret. That was my dream,
Graham's going to get his
pilot,
first YouTube strike now because of that.
What's that?
I said Graham's going to get his first YouTube strike because of that shithole.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm sorry,
No,
Graham.
wait a minute. If Green Beret, being a Green, because you were in the service, so if Green Beret was your dream, why didn't you go for that while you were in there?
Well, because then I was, by the time my career took off, everything, I'm in the reserves and stuff like that. So then I'm like, yeah. And it was.
But before the reserves, though, when you were in, why wasn't that your goal when you signed up?
Just because I went in, and then I went in, then I went full reserves with it because I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to appear in art, so I went with that. And then I could have. You had the opportunity to do that, but let me try this art thing.
Right.
You know, but
one of the kids in my neighborhood that I grew up with went in and became a Navy SEAL, which I know that's tough.
That's cool.
Yeah, I take a Green Beret over a Navy SEAL any day, though. But that's just me because I'm an Army guy.
Army guy.
All for the SEAls are amazing. You know, I mean, my God. But
they serve different purposes. So.
Yep. You get that tower of power, and you know what I mean. You get that. That's man. I see Green Beret, and I'm just like, you know.
Well,
there he is.
Did we just wake up from our nappy?
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
There you go. So if I can finish though, here's a funny story that going back, Lefty, when she first came out 25 years ago, people would thank me, like I signed their comic and like, thank you. And I'm like, no, thank you. I'd say for buying this book, because if it weren't for people like you, I'd be painting bridges for a living. And my wife just told me that if I was painting bridges for the state of New York, I'd probably be retired right now with a $175,000 pension. So I should have fucking painted bridges. Thanks a lot. You all ruined my life.
And talk about job security, man. Painting bridges, you get done, you start over again and go the other direction.
That's right.
Yeah. You don't take your work home, right?
Nope, that's right.
That's right.
Like, damn, that damn rivet. I can redo that rivet. I know it.
So you heard that in Amazon stock, you would have been set.
Jesus. Son of a bitch.
Billy
Amazon.
comments have ruined Billy's
goes on and on.
Hey, Art. In my live feed I did Wednesday night, one of the person in the message board, they posted who would win in a walker race between Art and Aaron. So how about that? So I'm getting shots for being old, but so are you in my live streams, and you're not even there, and you're getting shots. So
he's frozen again.
Well, he's taking a shot. That's why.
He's pouring it very carefully.
Nope, he's frozen.
Yep.
Here he's back.
He's back.
And he's frozen.
No, he's frozen again.
Horrible. Graham, screenshot that, and make that his head on our Brofessionals thing.
It's so frozen. That is hysterical.
Yeah, he keeps freezing up.
Oh my gosh, that's classic. Look at that face, man. Oh,
he's out.
Good. Woo!
So my if it didn't work out for me, I did have a backup plan. I was going to be a cop.
From a long line of cops, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad was a homicide detective. My grandfather was chief of police. My uncle was an FBI agent. My other great uncle was a cop in New York City.
You would have been a good cop.
Graham, way to break the chain.
Well, my dad encouraged me not to.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because at the time, when I was a kid, it was the early 70s, and New York was a shithole. It was really, really bad. And in fact, he moved us to Florida. So he didn't want me or his sons becoming police officers. He wasn't too thrilled when I told him I wanted to be a cartoonist. I can tell you that much.
Neither was my dad, yeah.
Yeah, my dad said to me, my mom was an artist and a teacher, and she was very supportive. My dad was like, when I told him, he goes, "What do you mean you want to be an artist? You got two cousins with master's degrees from Pratt Institute, and one of them's laying brick, and the other one's delivering pizzas. What the hell are you going to do with an art degree?" He says you should learn a trade. If you don't want to go to college, become a plumber, become an electrician, something like that. And he's not wrong.
No,
that probably would have been a good idea.
But you wanted to be famous. You wanted to be famous.
I needed the fame. I needed the accolades. I didn't need to be shot at.
Here's a sad story. My poor mother, my father had died, and she's raising 6 kids. And they had a clothing business, a clothing manufacturing shop, like for, I don't know, for all like, Calvin Klein and stuff like that, until the unions came and destroyed the garment industry in the United States. And I remember my mother driving me to the train station when I was going to college, and we had lost her home. Literally, we had lost the home. My mother had to sell it for like next to nothing just to pay the creditors off when we were renting. And my mother said, well, if you never went to college, we wouldn't be in this mess.
That's what I'm telling my daughter right now.
Yeah.
It costs me too much money.
Jasper,
well, my mom actually told me, because I would draw all the time. She's going, Art, why don't you do something more with your hands, like build things or repair things? She goes, I don't know about this drawing thing. And then my dad worked at the naval shipyard. He repaired ships, and he was a boilermaker. And that was cool growing up, because I got to see all those battleships and stuff like that were harbored and dry dock and everything. And so he would bring me home applications to the yard, like once every week. Like they would just be sitting on my drawing board, right? They would just be there, and we never had
up and very good.
God damn it, Art.
We never had that conversation. The applications would just be there.
I love that passive.
Art's dad was like the dad in October Sky.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Forget about these rockets, Homer.
Yeah.
Just the passive aggressiveness. You'd come to your table and go, another one.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop.
Well, even when the 90s hit, the big boom, and we bought the house and everything, and just doing very well financially, like rock stars. And my mom brings an application for HUD home, like a HUD home. She's like, I think you're living beyond your means. I think.
But it's hard for that generation to wrap their head around what we do.
Yeah.
Right.
My dad, he was probably more like your dad, Graham, but he wasn't aggressively against me. He just didn't support what I was trying to do. And my mom was very supportive. Right. And so it wasn't until my dad and I caught a bus up to watch the Portland Trailblazers play Seattle Supersonics up in Seattle. Right. And they had like this big fan bus, and we were riding the bus up there. And I think this was during probably like 93-ish, when I was working on sludge at Malibu and actually was starting to make money, career money. And it wasn't until we had a conversation where he was bad mouthing, blah, blah, blah. And I said, Dad, I make more money than you do right now. And he's like, what? And I told, I can't remember exactly what the dollar amount was, but I told him it. And ever since then, he totally respected what I did. Once I started making as much or more money than he did, then it was okay.
Right.
Well, the funny thing is, Graham, you were saying your dad didn't get it.
I told my dad. Yeah.
No,
yeah, but
Oh, I remember telling my dad something like that, Aaron, where he was like, I just want to make sure you're okay. Can you make a living doing this? And I was like, this month I made more money than you did for your best year at the shipyard, which was like 17.5 for the entire year. I made that in 1 month.
They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and then, but my dad, it started working on him. Like he started getting it, but my mom never did.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, Graham, you were saying that your dad never got it. It's so funny because the men of that generation didn't get it. A lot of those writers and artists that were working in comics, they didn't get it either. It was just a fucking job for them.
Oh, right? Yeah. They were embarrassed by it.
Yeah, Kirby's drawing 3 pages a day and being on that 5:15 train back up to New Rochelle. You know what I mean? It was just a job for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My dad finally did get it, and it was interesting because when I was doing the comics and I was doing Batman and Bane and Nightfall, and there was lots of press about it, even in the regular newspapers and stuff, my dad, it wasn't his thing. Comic books weren't his thing. So he wasn't really getting it. But then once I transitioned over to newspaper comics and I was doing a comic strip, and his paper, he was living in Georgia at the time, and his newspaper carried Rex Morgan, MD. And he'd open up his newspaper and he'd see my name in the newspaper. That registered with him.
Yeah.
He got that, because he grew up reading newspaper comics. And, so all of a sudden he's really, really, like, oh, this is really cool. I tell my friends, my son is right there in the newspapers, even though the newspaper comics, was practically, it swapped, it became the gutter comics versus comics. But he understood that and he got that. And the way I found out about it was we were doing a story about black mold. And so my phone rings one day, and because there's a smell in the basement, and my phone rings. I go, hello, and I didn't have I didn't caller ID or anything. I didn't know who it was. My dad's on the other end. He doesn't say hello or anything. He goes, I know what it is. And this is a homicide detective. He goes, I know what it is. I know what the smell is. And I go, okay, what is it, Dad? He goes, there's a stiff in the basement. And that told me he was reading it.
He's involved. Yeah.
He was reading it. And that was really cool. I was like, holy shit, this is really cool.
And then you bummed $100 off him.
You have to.
I mean, he was wrong, so he owed me money.
Things never change.
When you're on the ropes, you got to ask him for money.
That's right. Well, since you're on the line, Dad.
I'm a little behind on my car payment.
Yeah.
Well, so my son is not like me that wanted to be an artist. He's a welder now. So he's going to welding college, literally.
Yeah. And
he's just passed his 2 first certificates, and now the next one is DOT, and then the following one is aluminum. That's big money in that, and then DOT on the pipelines. And when Biden struck that pipeline, 56,000 workers are out of business, plus all welders are out of business, plus all the ones that were gearing up to work more. He just turned an entire union against him into conservatives.
Yeah.
But my son now, we went to the hardware store today to get him because he came home for the weekend and he wants to weld on the weekends because he can't weld at school because there's no supervisors there. And son of a bitch, if that kid is not outmanning me, I pride myself on going to Home Depot every weekend and having my pegboard in my garage with all my tools, and he's naming tools and shit that I have no idea what he's talking about. And I feel like the sissy dad. I feel like the sweet dad, the cart. And my son's like talking to the guys like, yeah, I need this 320, whatever. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about. Electrodes and all this stuff. Yeah. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah, my dad's an artist, like that.
What does he know? He doesn't.
So I'm like the sissy dad. I'm like, you little bastard. I'm going to talk. I gave you all your damn tools. And I'm like, you know what? Next toolbox, you buy it yourself now.
Exactly.
My son is an engineer, and he was just the other day singing the praises of good welders and the difference between a good weld and a piece of crap weld.
Yeah.
And then he have to, they're getting stuff. He's like a project manager, and he would have to inspect this stuff, and he'd go, why are you guys pushing this crap weld on me? You know what I mean? And so it kind of rung a bell when you said that, how important of a job that is in the, certain industries, that is a real art form. And there's bad welders and how important those welds can be to safety and
yeah. Well, yeah, because it's interesting. And I mean, to get away from the conversation, but he has tests, and then on top of the tuition, you have to pay for the test because it's a real federal certified test.
Right.
It was $350, and you got these kids, and they're failing. They fail, and the guy's like, "I'm sorry, that's a shitty weld. We're not going to give you." Because I mean, things fall apart if welding things that if you don't weld right, airplanes fall out of the sky.
Right.
Airplanes explode. Things like that. So it's pretty cool how he's he's a lot like my wife's father. He's very hands-on, he's just like that, and so he's into all that meticulous machinery and building things. And I'm like, hey, you want to watch, the new Justice League, the Snyder Cut? He's like, no. I'm like, shit. And then like I said, going to the welding supply store in Home Depot today. And I'm like, I had no idea what he's talking about. And I taught this kid. I gave him his first, monkey wrenches and torque wrenches and all this stuff. And now I'm just blown away. And now I'm like, I'm the SJW dad, I guess, who doesn't know anything about tools.
Well, like I told you, Billy, because my dad worked on some of those oil derricks out in the ocean.
Yeah.
And those underwater welders, they make a shit ton
That's
of
gotta
money.
be dangerous.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah,
I don't
of
want him
course.
to do that. Yeah.
You gotta get dive certified first.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
And then you have to learn how to, because I know a guy, he used to work out of my gym, who just went down to New Jersey to get certified for that.
Wow.
Yep,
It's
got
crazy the money they make. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
they make some coin.
You see a guy, like, so my father-in-law's a real car guy. So, so they he'll take the grandkids to, my sons to the car shows and stuff. And you see these guys with, Lamborghinis and stuff like that. And you would think, a lot of them are, say, like hedge fund guys and stuff, but it's unbelievable. A lot of welders, plumbers, guys that own their, what do you do? Well, what do you do? Like, I'm a plumber. And I'm like, you want to afford to pay you want to afford this car? Go into welding, do that trade, and then do your own business. We'll help you start your own business. But he wants to work for the union. He wants to build bridges and skyscrapers. He wants to build things. He wants to be able to look at it. And he says it's amazing at 18 years old. He's like, I want to show my kids, a building and say, like the Empire State, and say, I built that. I helped build that.
Yeah.
There's something really satisfying about doing that. When I was 19, I helped. I had one of my best friend's dad was a concrete contractor, and had his own business. And I helped him out over Christmas time. We were laying walls for these giant warehouses, right? And so we worked on these, and concrete's hard work, by the way. I wouldn't want to do that for a living, but we did it for this, like, I don't know, it was 6 or 8 weeks, whatever it was, building these walls. And then we went over there and watched them raise the walls. And there's this like real sense of pride and accomplishment.
Yeah.
You know what? I helped build that wall.
Yeah.
And even to this day, we're talking 40 years later, I drive by that area and I look at the business park and I'm like, I helped build those walls.
Yeah, I worked for Bricklayer, the same thing after high school in the summers and stuff. And I was just a laborer for him, my friend's father. And then I moved into the neighborhood where we worked, 6 years later or whatever, after I graduated school, 4 years later. And I'm like, I built that wall. I helped build that wall. You know what I mean? And I would say hi to it, like, I would say, I helped build this wall. Like, oh, but I'm like, yeah, Debbie, look, I built it. Debbie's like, oh, okay, that's great. Yeah.
This wall leaks, mister.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he said, I got this piece chipping over here. Can you come and get your trowel and
fix it?
I'm like,
oh, that's section.
I'm a cartoonist. I don't know that stuff now. I'm a sissy.
Yeah.
My favorite story about like people who do like all this masonry work and all, work on houses and build things. Their wives always say the same thing. It's like when he gets home, he doesn't fix anything. Like there's broken here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you look at any contractor's house or carpenter's house, they call them like Mr. 95%. Like I got a buddy of mine, his wife calls him Mr. 95% because he will start. And it's crazy because he drives her crazy, and it doesn't make sense to me either because, well, why don't you just finish doing the hi-hats in the den before starting something else? Right. And he's got wires hanging all. So he'll make the most beautiful homes for other people, and then his house is.
My dad was the same way, constantly middle of 3 or 4 projects and rarely finished any.
Yeah.
Yeah. They always say the
what if, right?
Wife,
what if?
The contractor's wife has the leaky faucets and the broken deck, So Art missed a lot of the what if. So I'm going to save this last what if for him right here. We're going to start with Art. What if, Art?
Yes.
Who was on second and what was on first?
Whoa.
What?
What if?
What if? And then if hit the
what if who was on second and what was on first? Now I don't know who's still on third. Today and tomorrow's pitching and catching. So what happens in that lineup?
I know the skit, but I don't know where it's
I think we all know the skit.
You poor guy. That's what happens when you come in late, Art. You don't get the softballs, you get the hard driving questions.
Yeah. Slider.
That's right.
I never could hit a good slider. I got the curveball thing down, but I could never hit a slider.
Here's a question for you guys. It's not a what if. It's not a what if question. The question
Graham,
is
real quick, Graham, if I may.
No, you may not.
Can you just share the screen? Can you share my screen? Because it finally did happen.
Oh yeah,
Who's on first?
Oh yeah, who's on first?
Sorry.
Yep.
Who was on first? Yeah.
All right.
Oh, goddamn, Art.
What was?
Where'd you go?
Oh, where'd he go?
He'll be back.
What's the best compliment you ever received?
Get me in there. Yeah, there you go.
That's
I'm telling you, man.
Oh, Lefty.
There's nobody more popular than me when I'm on doing shows.
Oh man,
All right,
I'm trying
so
to. What's
It's
that?
Lefty's girlfriend.
You ever received?
That was my daughter.
Your girlfriend.
Andy?
I'm thinking. Anybody can pipe in because I'm thinking.
Okay.
If I may, I can do it.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
It's probably the best thing anyone's ever said to me in my life. And it was 2004, and my wife and I went to go see My Chemical Romance at the Nassau Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
And they opened up, and they're playing, the Black Parade, if you guys know the album and stuff like that. And we just love that album. And Gerard Way is going on singing and stuff like that.
Sorry. Let me mute this.
And my wife, she just whispers in my ear, and she goes, "You could have done this." Like been a rock star.
Right.
And that was the greatest compliment I've ever got in my life.
Very cool.
And nothing even compares.
Okay. All right. Art, you got one?
I think it was my dad, and this is I don't know about. Okay, so what's the question? The greatest compliment?
Yeah, the greatest compliment you ever said. It doesn't have to be about your art or anything else. It just could be, a compliment that you really took to heart.
Yeah,
I think,
and this kind of goes in with the topic that we're talking about, like with fathers and acknowledging and stuff like that. I did a book signing in the mid 90s, and it was for the Ronald McDonald House charity, and they went bells and whistles. So I think I was working on X-Men 281. That was the when Wilson and I took over Uncanny X-Men, and had the big wraparound cover. They made one. I still have it in the other room. It's about like 20 feet tall by 10 feet wide. And it was a double-sided banner, and they had it behind me. And so I asked my dad, like, "Dad, you want to go, see what I do?" Like they were never like hands-on. They never went to a convention. They never even like, "What do you do?" Like there was never these conversations. And so then I invited my dad, but I didn't think he'd come. And so he showed up. And so he stood by like the desk there, and I'm doing my thing. And so it just warmed my heart that my dad was just there, just period. He was there. And so then I asked the promoter, because Pete Rose was there, and Pete Rose was my favorite dad. Like he loved Mr. Hustle, Charlie Hustle, whatever his name was.
Charlie Hustle.
He loved that guy. And so he was there signing too. And this was like when the industry just turned against you. Talk about like being canceled. That dude was canceled before we knew what canceling was. And so I asked the promoter, I said, my dad's a big Pete Rose fan. I said, could I get one of those signed balls, the baseballs? I go, I'll pay for it. I don't care. He goes, I'll do you one better. He said, in an hour, have your dad go over to the green room. And so I told my dad goes to the green room. Pete Rose is there. It's just a one-on-one with my dad and Pete Rose. Oh my God.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, my dad did not miss a freaking beat, man. He was just like, yeah, I remember seeing you, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't like fan geeky stuff. Like it was just like, they were just talking.
Like men talking. Real men talking.
Yeah. And so then Pete Rose just goes, hey, you want a ball? And my dad's like, sure. Signs it up, hands it to my dad. I still have the ball somewhere around here. It's probably in storage. But then my dad turned to me, he goes, I get it. Like, I get what you do. Like, he just kind of said, I get
That's
it.
awesome. You can make me cry. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's making me whelp up. And after that, like he did, he started going to shows, he started hanging out. Because also, like you guys know, like if a family member is like on a stream or they're at a show with you, and a lot of our wives go and stuff like that, they're like celebrities too. Like people, like people that are there to get your books are like, hey, Deborah, or hey, Pamela, or whatever. Like they love that stuff. So after that, like my dad was kind of a regular, they kind of acknowledged it. It's like, hey, there's Art's dad, Roy.
It's funny because I see Julia at the shows and she yells at fans. Like, I'm German.
She's tiny but mighty.
Yeah,
That's right.
Dynamite
Does
comes in
she do
small
this?
packages.
She shakes the finger at him.
Oh,
All right, I guess. So I got a funny one, and then the only serious one, I guess, that really comes to mind is I still get emails from people that bought my. So it's not just one; it's kind of in this basket. So I get emails from people that bought my first drawing book, Drawing Dynamic Comics, that came out 21 years ago now. And they'll say, "Oh, I got this when I was a kid." So, that makes you feel real old. And they're like, "I still have it. I still refer to it. I've had them hold it up on live streams and stuff." So that's all, that's just really cool.
yeah.
That you put something out there. It's kind of like, I would say it's kind of like How to Draw Comics the Marvel way for us.
Yeah.
In a way that, I still have my beat up copy of that. And if Buscema was still around, I'd be like, "Oh my God, this."
Yeah.
So that's really cool. But then the funny one is my wife never compliments my driving. Never. And it's more times than not, we'll be driving and she'll say something and I have to go, "Should I just stop and let you drive?"
Yep.
And it was about 13 years ago. We were driving down south and we were in South Carolina, and the night before was a bad snowstorm, which is weird for, South Carolina. But anyhow, so we're driving and I'm coming up on a bridge and you see the sign that says, "Hey, surface freezes over faster because, it's a bridge, whatever." And on the other side of the bridge, you see a couple cars pulled over, you see a cop with their lights on, and it's because they hit that bridge. And so as soon as we go on the bridge, we're not going speeding super fast or anything. The car just starts to go. And I can remember it still as clear as day. I looked at her and my daughter was in the back seat. She was only like 4 or 5 at the time. And I said, "It's go time." And I just, the driving instinct kind of took over. And when I was a kid, I used to street race and stuff. So the driving instinct of just go with it, steer into it, all that stuff just clicked in automatically. And the van next to us slid into us. We bounced off the cement wall back into the van. Once we got over the bridge, traction hit again, and we were able just to kind of pull over. And my wife puts her hand on my shoulder, and she's like, "That was some great driving."
Nice.
There you go.
I thought
So
what you
every
actually said
time-
was you made that bridge your bitch.
I did. But anytime she gives me shit for driving, I just remind her of that time, because it could have been a lot worse. And she's like, "That was some great driving," and I'm like,
What was
You remind
Andy,
her
Andy, what kind of car do you have?
What might have happened?
"It was an SUV. It was a Ford
Windstar?
Ford
Explorer?
Escape. I think it was a
Oh,
Ford
okay.
Escape SUV or Edge, one of the two. But
Okay.
it was an SUV, 4-door SUV. So,
Cool.
and it was, the whole side was smashed up, but it was luckily, good enough we could drive home. So, anyhow, nobody got hurt. Nobody in the van got hurt. Nobody was hurt, just the vehicles. So yeah, that was it. But on that note, I got to take off because I'm doing my 4 o'clock thing with my buddy Dennis.
All right.
So
See you, man.
I got to hit over
See you,
to that.
buddy.
But it was fun.
Yeah. Good.
And I'll have to check in later to see if you guys are still going or what the deal is.
No,
So,
it's still going.
Yeah.
it could be. I don't know.
All
Bye, everybody.
right. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
I still got
All
a bottle to drink.
So my
Shoot us, priest.
You mute yourself, Lefty.
Somebody,
just put your phone on
come
mute.
back to me. Come back to me.
Put your
All right.
phone on mute. What's the matter
I
with
think
this
you
guy?
did. Put the
He gets
phone
a
on mute.
major
Bill.
surgery and he loses his mind.
Well, he's
Let
not
me-
the technologically most gifted of all of us, that's for sure. So, so my favorite compliment was I was having drinks with a buddy of mine from the gym, who is a combat Marine from Vietnam, and he was telling me some of the stories about what he went through and stuff like that. And then he turns to me and he says, "You'd have made a good Marine."
Oh, you definitely would have made a great. You would have made a good Marine.
I thought that to me, I thought that was just.
Yeah, you would have made a good.
So
Yeah,
cool.
definitely. You would have made a good paratrooper too. You had that look. You totally would have. Even when you were all skinny and stuff back in the day. Well, we were all skinny back then.
Yeah.
No, you would have made it. You would have made a great paratrooper for sure. I could see you sitting there, standing next to me. Absolutely.
Well, there's my second favorite comment. Thank you, Billy.
There you go.
Oh, that's the second. Oh, okay.
Second after the first one with the Marine. Now, yeah, I meant that genuinely.
How about Chuck Connors? Though Chuck Connors gave you.
Chuck Connors said, gave you a goddamn Republican.
Yeah,
that was cool. That was a cool compliment coming from him.
I can't believe you got to hang out with Chuck Connors. I'm still. Oh my gosh. Now, Aaron? Did you give your thing yet?
No, I had my daughter keeps buzzing in, so I finally had to talk to her, and she had to tell me that she's going to play glow in the dark miniature golf tonight, so she's psyched up. And I'm like, can I call you back later? And they're going to an aquarium where apparently in the bathroom they have like a glass part of the bathroom's exposed to a shark tank or something, so you're washing your hands and you can see the sharks swim by. So I said, all right, well, just give me video. But
knock yourself out.
Yeah. Okay. So I did hear though. So your Graham, yours was Chuck Connors, right?
No. Mine was.
Isn't that what you just said?
No, Billy had brought that up as another thing, but mine was that a friend of mine who was a combat Marine in Vietnam said to me that I would have made a great Marine.
Oh, that's pretty cool. All right. Well, let me say I kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Andy said. I don't think there's anything more meaningful than a compliment from your wife, because if you have a good marriage, they're the most important person in your life, right? So anytime you get a compliment from them, regardless of what it is, it means something, even if you don't necessarily let on all the time. But for me, it's more about who's giving the compliment than what the compliment is. Like, just professionally speaking, if someone that I really respect comes up and goes out of the way to say, hey, I saw what you did, I thought that was really good.
Of course, yeah.
That really resonates with me and means something to me. But I can't pinpoint one example of that. But one thing that does come to mind when you say that is when I was working on Wonder Woman, I did a panel. And one of the things I tried to, all of us are known to a certain degree for, drawing women, right, in the industry, right? Mm-hmm. But I've always tried not to be exploitive in how I've done it. You draw beautiful women, but you draw them strong, or you draw them, she obviously, right? That's a strong character, a strong female character. Sure, she's good looking and sexy or whatever, but you want it represented in the right way, right? Yeah. And so I was in a panel talking about how I approached drawing Wonder Woman and the respect I had for the character, and how I didn't want her to be an exploitive character, but I wanted her to be a strong character that was still attractive and appealing, but not just a piece of meat, right?
Yeah, sexy is not sexualized.
Right. Exactly. And so, and on more than one occasion, but I do remember this one specifically, and I think it was at San Diego. I was out at the hall. No, I'm sorry, it was WonderCon. And I was heading back after the panel. I was headed back to my table, and some young woman who had seen the panel came up to me and said, I really appreciate what you said about how you handle the character of Wonder Woman. And to me, people can say, oh, you're a great artist or you suck or whatever, but ultimately it's more important what people think of you as a human being than maybe necessarily how good of an artist you are or whatever. And so when I get people that will compliment me and say, hey, I appreciate what you said, or how you handled that situation, or how you acted in this, those are the kind of things that stick with me. Because then you start thinking, maybe I am doing something right, or I'm coming across in the right way. And that to me is ultimately as important as it is for me to feel like other professionals think I'm a good artist. Mm-hmm. That is super important to me. But those are the things that kind of stick in your mind when someone says, hey, I saw your panel, or I saw what you said there, and I think that's, I really appreciate that, or I really agree with you, or I think you really nailed it. So that's one thing that just, for some reason, that sticks with me. That,
well, I don't know if you remember, Lefty, when I came up to you at San Diego a few years back when you were doing Wonder Woman, I'm like, dude, you're killing it on Wonder Woman. Remember, yes. you're at your booth, and I was just walking. I'm like, oh, dude, what's up? And I was like killing it, gorgeous.
When pros stop by and say that to me, that means the world, because it's like you're the guys that, I mean, fans are fickle, okay, and I appreciate fan support like everybody does, because we wouldn't be anything without it. But a lot of times,
I like your old work better.
This is pretty good. You did it.
But fans are more easily impressed than other professionals are, just because their perspective is different. And so when a pro comes up, and especially someone I respect, comes up to me and says, "Hey, Aaron, I really like what you did there," or that really means the world to me. So,
did you ever meet Dave Stevens at San Diego?
Yeah, I knew Dave. I mean, not real well, but we had booths next to each other for many years, and so he knew who I was, and we talked. But I would never, I never had dinner at his house or anything like that.
Yeah,
But
I would go to Dave and seek him out like my first San Diego was 93 when I was trying to get a job. So I was just trying to get work and I didn't get any work. But 94, she had come out a few months before and we were like the bee's knees that year. You know what I mean? It was great. So then I'm like, honey, I'm taking a break. So I went for a walk because I wanted to meet Stan Sakai, Sergio Aragonés, Mark Schultz, Dave Stevens, and they were all in a row. And every single one of them, I just gushed over them. And they kind of had heard of me because She was really like the new big thing. And each and every one of them was so uncomfortable of me gushing over them, of how great they were. And I'm sure I was the 1,000th cartoonist, you know what I mean, pro, that had said this to them. And still they were like, you talk to Sergio Aragonés with his work, he's like, "Oh no, Billy! Look what you guys do. I do little scratchy drawing. You know what I mean? I'm like, are you out of your mind? Look how Sakai and Dave Stevens was so humble and felt like literally he was uncomfortable. I think I made him uncomfortable.
Yeah. I have a funny Sergio story. He came to the Kubert School, and Joe brought him into the class to talk to the class and everything. And Joe, was he's the consummate teacher, and he wants to preface anything, Now Sergio's stuff, very humorous and very loosely drawn, but don't make the mistake of thinking that this man can't draw. And Sergio's like, "I can't draw." It's like, no, you're being modest. Sergio has a very good idea of anatomy and everything. Goes, "I never studied anatomy in my life. I just draw funny pictures." And Joe's looking at him. Joe's starting to get this slow burn. He's like,
We had San Diego, I think it was 2007 or 2008 San Diego, and DC had their comics panel where they introduced all these indie guys were doing work. Like you had me, I was doing Sergeant Rock, Sergio was doing something. I think Bat and Lash was doing Bat Lash, or Sergio might have been doing Bat Lash, but there was a bunch of us. Jimmy Palmiotti was there, and Terry Moore was doing something for them. Like they had hired us guys to do stuff for them. And I remember Sergio was saying, and the great thing is, because he just grabs a mic and he just starts, like you said, he just starts talking, and he's like, and it's so wonderful because you have someone like Billy, and Billy's doing Sergeant Rock because Billy Tucci loves war. Like, what?
I was at the Spectrum show in Kansas City. I don't know if you guys have ever done that.
No.
It's a fantasy art show. It's not really a comic show, but it's great if you're into the, seeing guys that are, illustrators that are doing fantasy stuff, and they show up there, and you get really. James
Art's really into your story, by the way.
What's that?
Art's really into your story.
Art is riveted.
Right? Oh, he's frozen in time. Soylent Green is people, but James Gurney walks up to me, and we're sitting there chatting, and he's like, "Oh, I love it." He didn't know who I was, right? Before that, but he's like talking about how much, he digs what I'm doing, and this is really nice, and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I was talking to him, we had a conversation. It wasn't, and it was an amazing experience, because you're sitting there going, this guy does Dinotopia, and he's taking the time to come over and comment on my stuff. And then we had a conversation and stuff. He was the nicest guy in the world. But it was really cool,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I met John Romita at a show one time, and I don't know if I told the story on this stream or if it was on one of my own.
Now.
It was at San Diego Comic-Con, and Chuck came up to me and told me that Ramita had just sat down at his table. So I got up because I'd never met him, and Ramita was like the
What
first.
year is this?
This was 1997.
Okay.
And so I get up and I go, and he's already got a line. So I get into the line just like everybody else, and I get up to him, and I introduced myself. I said, hi, John. My name is Graham Nolan. And before I could get any further, he goes, Graham Nolan, the artist? And I'm like, yeah. He says, I love that Spider-Man Batman book that you did. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay, I can retire. I can retire now. John Romita knew me and liked this book that I did. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is that I drew all the Batman characters in my style, and I drew all the Spider-Man characters in his style.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. That's right.
Well played.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
So where's Art? What happened to Art?
I don't know. He's got some internet issues, I guess.
I tell you, man, Texas. Sounds good until you get there. No, I'm kidding.
But then again, you don't need the internet. You live in Texas. You live in Texas. So what do you care?
That's right. Exactly. All right. I got a question. What if? Okay.
Fire.
Celebrity actress that you just love or loved. If someone said, hey, and no slamming on anybody's wife or anything like that, but I mean, just fantasy world, if you could have like dated, or married or whatever in a fantasy situation, who was the one actress from any era that was like, oh, I was in love with her?
Lee Remick.
Who?
Lee Remick.
Lee Remick.
Have you met Lee
Both
Remick?
you guys with Lee Remick?
What's that?
You both said Lee Remick?
No. He said
he was repeating me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought Lee Remick was gorgeous.
So Lee Remick, huh? But she
How
was.
about you, Aaron? Who's yours?
I am still torn to this day between Anne Margaret and Sid Charisse. But
Yeah.
Anne Margaret being the redhead I'd probably go that direction just because it's more interesting. But Sid Charisse, oh man, I love Sid Charisse. Even as a young kid watching
And
her.
you're a tall man, so you can have Sid Charisse. She's
right.
tall.
Yeah. So those probably Anne Margaret if push came to shove.
Wow.
Would be Anne Margaret. But okay,
mine is Audrey Hepburn.
Oh yeah.
And I married her because my wife looked so much like Audrey Hepburn back in the day. She really, if you look at when she's singing Moon River in Breakfast at Tiffany's, she looks like when Debbie was that age too. I mean, when I first saw her, and she didn't have like just those, her facial features and everything like that, and she was like, I'm like, wow, I found my Audrey Hepburn. But totally, I adore Audrey Hepburn.
Short-haired wig. Now Lee Remick was beautiful. She really.
Yeah. There she is.
Is Lee Remick? Is that no that is Lee? Who is the Catwoman?
Oh,
Merriweather.
Yeah,
she was. Yeah.
Yeah,
we met Lee in the movie.
Yeah, right. We met Lee Merriweather at the DC party a few years back at San Diego, and she was sitting at a table with her daughter. Mm-hmm. And I just walked up to her, Debbie and I, and my wife, and she was 82 years old, and she was stunning.
She's still stunning. Yep.
Stunning.
When she smiles, it's like she's 60.
Yeah.
No, but I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah,
but I mean, obviously the woman is, she's in her late 80s, but it takes 20 years off of her, and she's still gorgeous.
Yeah. But my two, I think, though, again, aside from oh my God, the same face. Oh no, he's moving now.
No, he's right. Art, you got to pay for your internet bill, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one is my other favorite lefty is Linda Harrison.
Oh
my God, Nova from Planet of the Apes.
Hey, wasn't she married to the producer of that film?
Zanuck.
Yes,
Zanuck's son. Yeah, Daryl Zanuck's son. Yep. And
she was a cheerleader in Batman.
Was she really?
Yeah. The episode where the Joker goes on campus, on the school campus, and tries to turn the kids into criminals, and he's got like some vending machine racket going on school, and Dick Grayson is like in the student committee, and he's and the girl is the cheerleader, and it's Linda Harrison.
I didn't know that.
What a knockout!
Does it have
God.
to be
And
film?
we met her about a decade ago, and she was still stunning.
It could be TV art.
Betty White is too young for art.
I do.
Hey, Art, how's your hair looking today?
Art is the new cap. His internet is from 1941.
Oh, all right. You're nice and slick back. You usually
that was directed at me and Graham, I think, because he still has his hair, so he's kind of rubbing it in a little bit.
No, Art's hair. The last time he was on, he had that. I don't know what's his name with the cubicle.
Bedhead.
No, what the hell's his name? The French cartoon.
Airgaze, Tintin.
Tintin. He had the Tintin. To the extreme.
And he's gone again.
And he's gone.
Oh my God.
Hey.
My Wi-Fi is being. Can you guys hear me? Because everybody. Yeah. Okay. So mine would be what's the name? Barbara Eden, the I Dream a Genie chick.
Oh, Barbara Eden. Oh, baby. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, I dug her as her evil sister though with the brunette.
Oh, did you?
Yes. I like bitches.
Yeah. For me, it was. I can't believe they got away with that much skin on TV. That's a lot of skin.
No belly button though, right?
No belly button.
That was it, right? Wasn't that it? Or was it like as long as you don't show the belly button? Like Marianne never showed a belly button. I don't
know. There were belly buttons in Star Trek.
Ooh. They did. That's true. I don't understand that double standard that was going on there.
Yeah, maybe NBC had a better lawyer.
TJ James says Elizabeth Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about legs? Google Elizabeth Montgomery legs or something. Like she had the most oh my God.
Young, when she was really young, when she first started that show, she was gorgeous. The other one was like what is her name? She played 99 in Get Smart. Like she wasn't
Barbara Feldman?
Drop Dead gorgeous.
But there was
Barbara
Feldman.
Something about her that you
Barbara Feldman. How about that? Wow.
Wanted to hang out.
I bet you were a big.
I'm sorry, but that's a stretch.
It's kind of like she was trying to be cute.
Chan fan of the Brady Bunch.
She looked like she was.
Look at that. There's more.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There's the shot.
Check her out. There's more. There's one of her on a one of our a famous comic creator. There's one of her like a Christmas one with a chimney and stuff. If you do Elizabeth Montgomery, look at that. Look at that.
That's a great shot there.
It's like Anne Margaret. Look at that.
Yeah.
Hot
dog. She had that little cute upturn, like her nose was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
She looks like a Bob Oxner character.
That's Robert Montgomery's daughter, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you guys say, real quick? I know we're ending, but the most beautiful starlet or Hollywood star ever. Oh my God. Victor says Jennifer Connelly. Oh, geez. Look at that. Oh,
I thought they had to be dead or older.
No, but of all time, like who's your favorite, are the ones you want to marry that? Because you asked who would you marry?
Well, whoever your crush was.
Yeah, who the crush was. I mean, there's so much. All you have to do is throw a dart at a wall.
Yeah, they're all lookers, aren't they, Graham? They're all lookers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of beautiful women in Hollywood, so.
You know what? I would go. I kind of lean towards Lana Turner.
Oh my God! Postman always rings twice.
You like those slutty girls?
No, she was really good looking. Though she was really pretty.
Look at this, Raquel Welch. Oh my God, they come in.
Yeah, she aged well.
Yeah. What about Jean Tierney? Remember her?
Oh,
yeah. I didn't like her overbite.
What? She's an Irish lass.
Yeah, I didn't like that overbite.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, Gene Tierney could eat an apple through a chain link fence.
Actually,
look at us, because we're all we're all Errol Flynns, and we could like have our pickings.
Yeah,
you know who was sneaky good looking? Donna Reed was.
Donna Reed in The Best Years of Our Lives. Was it?
You mean in
From Here to Eternity?
Yes,
that was one where she played the hooker with Montgomery Clift.
Well, I remember her from It's a Wonderful Life, of course.
Yeah, no, Donna Reed was stunning in. I think it's From Here to Eternity. Yeah, I think it's From Here to Eternity.
Right, I think
Donna Reed. She played a call girl.
Yeah,
stunning.
Yeah,
the same year she made It's a Wonderful Life. She became a call girl, and then the most wholesome mom with her pearls. And
yeah, that's right.
So Aaron has a type, we're finding.
No, that wasn't the same year as
46, wasn't it? It's a Wonderful Life 46?
Yeah, 40. That was but From Here to Eternity was 50.
Oh, 53.
53.
That's right, because that's the scene from The Godfather. Because remember, the actor Johnny Fontaine was supposed to be Sinatra,
right?
Yeah.
And he wanted the part in that film, but he took Ava Gardner from the film producer.
Ava Gardner,
the best piece of ass I ever had.
Ava Gardner, there we go.
Oh my God, that's.
But you know what? She didn't age well either.
No,
she did not age well.
They were all smokers,
Yeah, that didn't help. That did not help.
But you know who was a looker for many years, and was also a diehard conservative was Ginger Rogers.
Really?
Yes.
Well, so was Shirley Temple. Remember how beautiful Shirley Temple grew up to be? She married John Akers.
John Agar, yeah.
Agar, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
From San Ujima. She married him, Sergeant John Agar, and
you know who else I thought was really pretty was Susan Hayward.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't she?
Susan Hayward was stunning.
Was she in that Irish movie with John Wayne?
No, that's Marino.
That was Marina O'Hara. That's
right.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's Ginger Rogers there. Are you kidding me?
That's a hard-looking broad.
You got to Google Gene
way.
Tierney. I can't believe you're not a big fan of Gene Tierney. Google Gene Tierney.
No, I know Gene Tierney. My dad had a.
I know her. I know her intimately.
I like Gene Tierney.
Hey,
I'm going to
Google
Google Gene Tierney eating an apple. Gene Tierney eating an apple.
Oh my God! I don't see any overbite on Gene Tierney. I don't see that.
Yeah, I never thought that either.
The Beaver.
If you Google Audrey Hepburn Moon River and they'll grab the shot of her singing, tell me she doesn't look like my wife. 15 years
that's a trap. I'm not going into that.
No. You're
setting me up right there.
I'm going to go downstairs at the end and say moon.
I ain't doing it.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
It's been a heck of a show, guys. This really
Heck of a show.
No, it's been entertaining. I've been entertained, and I'm in it.
So that's good. So
did everybody give up their car keys to Aaron?
Yeah.
So
I've been
who's
drinking water this whole time?
Who's taking it on next week?
I think I am.
Is it you? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Well,
so regular time, that time.
When it's my turn, I think I know my subject matter is going to be Hollywood starlets. Yay or nay?
Oh,
now see that's
there we go.
Because we are alpha males.
That's
hi lad.
Yeah, I lied. And I got to tell you guys, and I want to say something from the bottom of my heart. And Fragaboom's here. He's in the chat and he's recovering. But and even Andy, all you guys are all mensches. You're all great men. You're great fathers, great husbands. And I think you know what? We all married up.
Absolutely.
We all abided by the rule, the morality rules of how a man should be. And I think we've aced it. Kick
Killed
ass,
it.
man.
All right.
Well done.
Love it.
I'll drink to
Huzzah!
that.
Huzzah!
Slancha.
Click, click.
What's a proper enunciation of slancha?
You said it right, Slancha.
Oh, there you go, laddie. I think I'm going to go write another play by the water and play. Yeah, I'm getting into my Scottish now.
That's pretty
Graham, do
good.
you have any Scott in you? Have you done the DNA?
Me?
Yeah, have you done a DNA, the ancestry?
No,
You
my sister did it and came back 88% Irish.
Oh, and what else? What's the other 12?
There
we
was a lot
don't-
of English. A lot of English on my mom's side, some German, French, and sub-Saharan African, because they just throw that in there.
Yeah. How about you, Lefty? Have you done anything like that?
No, my grandfather, for crying out loud, is 100% Italian, came from Sicily. So
Wow.
my dad, he married a wasp, I guess, is that what you call him? But
Yes, wasp.
Yeah,
I love
wasp.
wasps.
and
My mom was a wasp.
yeah, so I'm definitely a quarter Italian, and everything else is just European mix. So I know where most of my heritage is Italian, and so I just kind of gravitate to that. I'm not really concerned about the little bits and pieces that it could be anything,
Well, you should. When you find out you're a Scot,
You got to
agree with it. I spent $300 yesterday on buying my Elliot tartans for the family. I bought Debbie leggings. I bought her a dress.
I don't want to get.
I bought a shirt.
Start, if anything, it's going to cost me money, man.
It's going to cost you money.
Yeah, don't do it. Yeah, my aunt did, and we're Portuguese and French. So French on my dad's side, Portuguese on my mom's, and it's almost
Portuguese.
Yeah, it's almost pure too, like French Canadian. My grandmother spoke French, and my grandmother's mother is from Portugal, so they came here to the States. So it's pretty much those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy to have found my Irish roots this week.
Well, it comes so
Graham.
natural for
I
you.
called Graham 3 times on St. Patsy's Day and FaceTimed him once because I was asking him, what do I
He's
eat?
asking me all these Irish questions.
What do I drink? What do I do? I sent him like screen caps of the menu. Like, which one?
He even had a little green coat that
I
he was
did. I have
wearing.
a green jacket with green in the shirt. And I told the guy,
Hey, one thing you can say about Billy, when he's in, he's all in.
bro, I'm all in. I told you, Graham, I'm going all in.
Well.
Oh!
Look who's here.
Time to leave.
I know.
Portuguese night.
I heard Portuguese, and we had to represent. Had to represent. Yeah, I'm Portuguese, Dutch, German, Irish, and English. So a mutt.
And I'm sorry.
European.
It's all right.
He's got no Irish in him, Graham.
Irish.
I've got Irish. What are you talking about? I just said it.
All right.
Oh, you did.
Portuguese, Dutch, Irish, English. My grandmother's last name.
Your Heinz 57.
Yeah, my grandmother's last name was Ryan. So
there we go. Okay.
Ryan, and then
I think it was Orion.
No.
No,
Can't
you don't
be that great.
great.
Can't be that great, man. How are you guys?
So Dan, how you feeling?
Doing good. How are you feeling?
A lot better. I got to pull the stents out 2 days ago, which was good. I been back to work, working, trying to get the Sea Dog cover done. Just inked my Liefeld page this morning, and working on Black Flag. So back to work. It's good.
You
That
drinking a lot of water?
Liefeld page looks incredible, man. You nailed
Thanks,
it.
man. Thanks. He says I can share it next week, so I'm excited to be able to share it.
Dan, I know you
Fine.
work at least like 16 hours a day. Do you think you've been having the stones and all? Do you think that you just keep going and then you sleep and you keep going? Would that have something to do with you getting these stones and stuff?
No, the main thing is the diet and lack of hydration. I mean, I would say it contributes. What you're talking about contributes to I don't know if you've ever edited video before. But the same thing happens. We're all artists, so the same thing happens to me. I lose track of time because when we're editing, we're focused on one piece at a time and kind of nailing it down. And because we're playing that 1 second, 5 seconds over and over, we lose track of the fact that it took an hour. Or if we're working a panel that's this frozen moment and we've been working on it for 4 hours, sometimes it only feels like 10 minutes. So I forget to drink water. I just forget. I forget to eat. If someone didn't call me and say, "Hey, it's dinner time," I wouldn't go upstairs. So that has a lot to do with it. Is that Zaid Comics? Walk us through pulling the stents out. What does that entail exactly? Well, there was a
Did they give you
2 inches of 2 inches of string hanging out of my penis.
Yep.
And I was told to go into the shower and try to relax this. Yeah, try to relax as well as I could and pull it out. And I did some research. They said it was 25 centimeters, which is roughly 9 inches or so.
Yep.
That's a lie. It was like 13, 14 inches because I was pulling and going, my eyes are rolling back.
I know.
I'm going, fuck. And I'm going, there's more to this. And then when
it still didn't fit into that frag-a-boom.
That's right. Yeah, he was soft. He wasn't even hard.
Well, Dan, you're not supposed to do it when you have an erection.
Well, no. I pulled it straight down, man. Believe me, there was no excitement in this at all. I was the only thing I was worried about was passing out in the shower. I was actually concerned with falling out. What's up?
Saying hi.
Hey, buddy. How are you? Yeah.
That's why you got to be like Graham Nolan. Graham Nolan's got that massive shower with the 4 heads and the bench and everything like that. You could just sit on
the bench. If I sat on the bench, it would pinch it down. You have to stand and just kind of, pull the cable out.
Hardcore, man.
Yeah. So, what are you drinking, Billy? That looks like scotch.
I'm drinking a single malt, man. I'm drinking my Aberlour 12.
Oh, nice.
Really
nice,
cool.
man.
It's about $70.
Well, now that we know you're Scottish, you need to go get yourself some Lafroig.
Oh, I like Lafroig. Yeah, I like Lafroig.
That tastes like burnt moss, man. It's delicious.
Well, a lot of the moss peaty stuff's from southern Scotland, where my family is from.
Yeah.
They were reavers, dude. That's a whole show. They were reavers. They were border ravers. The Elliots.
My people.
I went on Ancestry and now I'm meeting all my cousins in the past 2 days. That's why I've gotten no work done.
That's awesome.
They were bad fucking people. They were like sheep thieves, horse thieves, murderers. And then they got kicked out of Scotland and settled in the Midlands of England. They were like,
that's amazing.
You know where you came from?
When you get kicked off an island, that's got to be fucking bananas. Like,
oh my God, yes.
Cool.
So, and my wife is like, yeah, I can totally see that where you got it from, because apparently.
Oh my God!
This is big enough for the 2 of us.
Did you guys
happen
to?
Because I'm 16% Irish.
I heard about 16%. I watched your stream, man. I was watched it. Did you guys watch any of the Snyder Cut at all yet?
Not yet.
No.
Bro,
Okay.
4 hours. Now, do we want to watch it? Because didn't Snyder come on and
4 hours is a lot of my life. I did want to get some of that back.
Didn't Snyder diss the fans? Like, yeah.
He dissed the people putting on the charity and everything. Yeah, and called them a hate. But yeah, called them a hate group and whatever. But
then he left, right? Well, yeah, fuck him.
Yeah, I tried last night, and I just talked to a buddy who loved it. Right? He said he loved it. And I said, man, I was bored to tears. But then I realized something, like, there are comic book fans, there are hardcore Marvel fans, and there are hardcore DC fans. I've always been sort of a broad comic book fan, but if you had to put the emphasis on anything, I would put it like 95% Marvel. Like, you can ask me about Marvel characters, and I'll tell you interconnections, first appearances, who drew them, and all that stuff. You ask me about DC, I can give you Batman, I can give you Superman, and a little bit of Green Lantern, but for the most part, I don't care.
Yeah.
And there's that guy, Batman. Don't forget Batman. Yeah, I like Bane, but Bane is kind of a Marvel character if you look at him. But watching the 1/3 of it that I watched, I didn't care. He didn't make me care, and I think I'd have to be a DC fan to care, because there was no charm. There was sort of this assumption, like you knew what was going on. I'm like, what's that? Who's that? And you kind of played out like you should know already, and that's a dangerous thing to do. It's like the thing I like about the Marvel movies. Most of the Marvel movies, I don't love them all, but especially the Captain America movies, is they're set up. There's charm. You want to hang out with those characters. I didn't want to hang out with a single one of the characters in this movie.
Well, that's
the problem with Zack Snyder's films. Everything is so damn dark.
Yeah,
and I don't just mean the way it's filmed. I mean the characters. Everything is so dark.
Well, Graham, can I bring this up for you guys? If those of you that did see Justice League, to me, as as a cartoonist and all, I felt that palette was very muddy.
Yeah,
it was very, and I mean, like I'm agreeing with you 100%, Graham, about the characters being dark, but I felt the palette was dark.
Yes,
remember, you're like, what's going on in the background? Remember,
I can't see anything.
A character would retreat to the background and disappear because it was so muddy. The colors, and I get it. We're trying to be cool and the dark, and but even Marvel will maybe darken, Cap's red. You know what I mean? He'll bring it more down or make it more of a burgundy, let's say, right? But you can still see it, and it pops with the DC.
It's like they're embarrassed by color.
Seem to, aside from 300 with I think and Ann Nocenti's, was it Ann Nocenti? No, what's her name? Not Ann Nocenti. The colorist,
Lynn Varley.
Lynn Varley's colors totally was all throughout 300. He totally used Varley's palette for that, and that you could make out. But when he grabbed the DC universe all on his own, I just felt those films were so muddy and dark. Right, you recede back, it's just mud and crap, and you lose the characters unless they're right in front of your face. You lose them.
Well, Man of Steel.
All of his movies look the same. All of his movies look the same. And I've never been a big Zack Snyder fan because I'm still waiting for his first good movie. And 300 was fine.
Dawn of the Dead.
The
remake.
Hey, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that Dawn of the Dead movie was great.
You know what? Not only do they look the same, they sound the same. How fucking loud was Justice League?
Well, he's a one-trick.
Oh, he's just loud, and the quick cuts, and just it's like Goonies for adults. It was just loud.
Oh, Goonies! You don't like Goonies?
It's like
people
screaming, yelling. That movie.
I
love Goonies.
I like the redheaded chick.
When I went and saw that when I was a kid, and I was irritated. I was like, I felt like I was babysitting a bunch of brats for 2 hours.
Wow, and the kid defense says, "Oh shit!"
They yell everything.
You didn't like the show or the
top? Hey, you guys!
All right, hey dudes, I gotta do my physical therapy. I'm gonna have to run. Gotta work this arm.
All right, bud.
Feel better.
So you've got the show next week.
Yep.
So
what's the subject?
Let us know what the theme is going to be.
I'm thinking about classic illustrators.
Oh,
well, right.
I'm going to go that route. So I'm so kind of like be prepared to like give me a couple examples of guys that you looked at outside of comics, and what you got from them and that kind of
three.
Not now.
Three people.
2 or 3, yeah, whatever. I mean, not 20, but give me
we're the professionals. We prepare for these things.
That's right. So you have some cool aids.
Every episode is well researched and lots of information is gathered, folks. Don't you think we're doing this on the fly?
Yeah, we're all comfortable too.
So anyway, unless I have an epiphany before then, that's what I'm thinking. So.
All right. Sounds good, bud. Good luck on your physical therapy.
Yep. Thanks, gentlemen. See you soon.
Hey, Aaron, great cover.
Which one?
Your latest cover.
Oh, the Shield cover? Oh, thank you very much.
Well done. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. See, that's one of those compliments that means
really fantastic. Amazing.
Thank you.
And one of your best. Yes, I agree.
That's what I joked. It only took me 30 years to do my best cover.
Hopefully they don't ruin it with logos.
Yeah, exactly. At least I'm learning as I go. So
yeah.
anyway. All right, guys.
All right, buddy.
Man.
See ya. Okay.
Take care. Yeah, but to Dan's point about the Zack Snyder films, I think the main thing is there's a zero humanity. It's like he says hope and change, or hope and what is it, inspiration, or that's what Superman's supposed to be, but they never show it. They just say it. Like there's zero humanity in it. And for me, all the effects are all the things you talked about, but to me, they look like bad video games.
Yeah.
They just look like video game effects. That's the level of it. So there's zero humanity. So as far as actually embracing it and actually getting anything out of these films, you can't, because there's no humanity. There's nothing to connect.
And that's not the actor's fault, because I think Henry Cavill is a great Superman.
He's so underused.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is the best looking Superman ever.
Yes.
And they don't write him as Superman.
No.
I mean, in Man of Steel, he makes some really stupid decisions, which ruin the movie. And then in Batman versus Superman, he's flying around like he's some kind of god, and totally detached from humanity, which is not how he was raised.
Right.
You know, there's a woman standing on a roof during a flood with help spray painted on the roof, and he stands there so she can admire him as his cape billows in the wind. It's like, swoop down there, dude. Pick her up.
Yeah. Because he's the one that appreciates humanity. He's the one that gets humanity. He's the one that understands humanity, embraces it more so than us, because we're the ones that take it for granted.
Right.
Well, that would be human. That would be
his Midwest upbringing that prevents him from becoming the dictator that absolute power gives you.
Yes, and given that Englishman, and I think physically, and again, I love Christopher Reeve. I grew up with him. I love him. I do. But I think aside from Clint Walker, I think that Henry Cavill is the best actor that I can think of to portray Superman.
Yeah.
I always look at Clint Walker, and imagine Clint Walker was born 40 years later.
Physically, yes.
Physically. Yeah, but I like Clint Walker. Remember in the Dirty Dozen when what's his name got in his face?
Lee Marvin.
Lee Marvin got in his face. Smacking him, whatever like that. And he's rearing, and the power he had, and he's being restrained at first. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I remember seeing like, oh, what a Superman he would be.
Yeah.
I really feel, I thought he was very vulnerable, Clint Walker, because he was vulnerable and humble but you know that he would throw you through a friggin' window. Right.
I loved George Reeves as Superman.
Yeah.
I was thinking about something that
George Reeves' personality. If you get George Reeves' personality into the body of Cavill, Henry Cavill, that's Superman. You got the perfect Superman.
Well, I think that now, Clint never had a lot of, the range of his acting experiences or film, roles that were afforded to him. He was never able to express that range, but look at him in his Westerns. Imagine
Cheyenne.
Imagine,
Cheyenne Boone.
Yeah. You're going to be Superman, and we have a budget, in 1964 of $5 million to make a Superman film. I don't. I think of all the Hollywood guys, Clint Walker is he is the Kurt Swan epitome to me.
Yeah, he would have been perfect looking Superman. Yeah, he doesn't have the emotional range as an actor.
I don't know.
Plus, with that accent of his,
Well, it's Midwestern, ain't it? Or is it too technical?
No, it's Western or Southern.
Not Kansas.
It'd be diversified.
Art, what are you doing, Art? What are you doing?
I'm drawing.
What's going on today, Art?
Yeah.
A very bright white light.
Yes. He shows up 2 hours late. He's got no internet, and he's busy drawing.
And now I have
Danny Fraga here. Danny's working. He's got the glove on. He just had two major surgeries in the past 2 weeks.
Right. Me and you, we're just drinking.
Yeah, I'm off to.
Man, I can't wait to drink. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
What is that?
Show us the bottle. Are you drinking that bottle?
Cattle One. Lucky man.
Graham, what's going on for you and Julia tonight?
We're gonna meet Mary and her boyfriend and go out.
Oh, wait a minute. Mary's boyfriend?
Oh yeah.
Do we like Mary's boyfriend?
We love Mary's boyfriend.
Oh, okay,
Great guy.
Are you bringing the Winchester?
No, I don't need it.
Did you show him a pig farm?
I am a weapon.
You are a weapon. Hey, going back to something that Art had said and about the humanity of the movie. I know I keep coming back and beating that thing up, but there was a point in the movie where Wonder Woman does her thing, and I thought there could have been a million other ways to do it, but some little girl says, "Can I be like you one day?" And she says, "You can be anything you want." And like, I go, that's such a fucking ham-fisted, like,
you can't bounce bullets, you can't lift a truck, and you can't fly. But other than that,
right.
You're not 5'10" and fucking one of the most beautiful women ever to walk the earth.
Right.
Well, that's what I said about the new Captain America. I think it was yesterday on my live stream. No, you can't be Captain America. There's one Captain America. Steve Rogers is Captain America. That's right. It. Bottom line, you don't have the powers, you don't have the abilities, you don't have anything, you don't have any of the attributes of it, so you can't be Captain America. Mm-hmm. So I thought the story should have been Steve Rogers goes and gets the bum and just says, "Give me the shield, give me the costume. You can't be Captain America." That's the end of the story, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the Falcon and Winter Soldier debuts today.
Yes, tonight.
I want to give that I'm going to give that a watch. Being a Marvel guy, so I want to give that a watch.
I'd rather watch that than the Snyder Cut too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, dude. If you're a DC fan, like I said, my buddies that I just spoke with is super critical, and he said he loved it. But he's a DC guy, so if you're a DC guy, maybe it's in there for you. I just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I made it an hour and a half.
DC had a red carpet thing for Batman v Superman, and we all got invited. Everybody was lived in California, and I had to lie. It was the biggest lie. It was like, "This is great, yeah, Batman v Superman, you go."
I couldn't make it. I couldn't make it through that movie. There was a point where Lois was in the bathtub and Clark Kent like walks into the bathtub with her.
Yeah.
And I said, the tone is wrong.
Yeah.
Like there's something about the tone of these movies that turns me off, and I just can't watch them.
I don't think Zack Snyder is a human being, just pure and simple. I mean, we've all met people like that are just they're just not tuned into the human experience. Like they can't relate to it, and then they can't create. I mean, technically, he might be great. I don't like his storytelling. I don't like his visuals. I don't think he's a visionary director or anything like that. But just the humanity or the lack thereof in his films is just incredible. Like the guy must just be void of any real like understanding of the way the human psyche works.
Well,
like zero empathy.
Like his choices for superhero films and the choices he makes in making those films are all based on the nihilistic versions of everything that were instituted by Frank Miller.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Everything is nihilistic.
Yeah.
There's no hope, there's no redemption, there's no sense of heroism just for the sake of heroism in the way that great mythologies are written about the errant knight going and doing things because it's the right thing to do, not because it's realistic or whatever. And that's what we're talking about. Talk about legends and stories of heroism, and it doesn't have to be reality. Amen. And he just doesn't get that.
The thing is it's not reality. In the real world, heroes do die, heroes do lose. There is great loss. Yes. But the thing that's always great and
great sacrifice
superhero comics is most of the time it doesn't happen. So the hero is the hero. Things do come out of it better than they went into it. All of these things. And so you can say, well, it's unrealistic, but it was never designed to be. It's designed to be inspiring. It's designed to like uplift, maybe inspire you to make a sacrifice or to do something for somebody else. Reality is going to in. Yeah, reality is going to set in later. But these things were also designed for children. They were never designed for adults. So reality is going to set in, when they get in their late teens, their early 20s, they're going to start figuring out. But they'll have a good basis of those things. You know what I mean? Like sacrificing, giving up, doing things. And they'll be inspired to maybe want to help, to be like one of these heroes or something like that. But if there's beat down and there's too many strings attached to it, why would you ever want to even do it? You know what I mean? Yeah. So you if you want to be cynical, you can go, oh, you're lying to children. If you want to be so blunt, you go, you're lying to children, you're setting them up. But you know what? We were all lied to. And, I don't think it hurt me at all. I want to help people. I go out of my way. I believe in altruism. I believe in all those things. And I think a lot of that came from comic books and the morality of my family. But
sure. I mean, it was bolstered by the morality of your family. You were taught that way, and then you saw it in the popular culture, i.e., through comic books, and it validated what they said. But in today's culture, if you have a family with a solid unit, and you try to preach those things to them, you're putting them out in the world that is beating against you 24/7. Is trying to deny everything that you're trying to tell these kids as you're raising them. And it's a very, very hard uphill battle these days because there is no representation of heroism and altruism in popular media.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because my not to bring religion into it, just sort of values. I was raised going to Sunday school and going to church, and my dad told me, he said, there's going to come a time where these things that and learn to be good and true are all going to be under attack. Mm-hmm.
Wise man.
Yeah, no, and he was absolutely right. It's just kind of bananas to watch the world do exactly what he said would happen.
But the thing is, you still have to have that basis. That's what's being lost, is just the attempt to, believe in something, to have these values. Sure. And that's what makes the difference, because I always told my wife this when we were raising Amanda. I was like, we don't have to really tell her these beat down things. I said, society will do that on its own. Let's teach her to believe in something. Let's teach be inspiring, to help, all those things. And then reality, she'll figure out what those parameters are, how comfortable she is with giving, and all these other things that we've instilled, upon her. But we don't want to discourage it. We don't want to show too much of this other side, because then why in the hell would you even want to do it? You know what I mean? Like, why?
True.
If you do all this stuff, why would you want to do it? And I do think there's a part of the brain that isn't fully formed until you're in your 30s. And that's why when you're in your 20s and you're younger, you do stupid shit, because you don't quite acknowledge or understand repercussions yet. You don't get that until your 30s. And so you can do stupid things. So at the same time, you can learn all these things. And then, you know what I mean? Then you don't, the reality starts setting in later. But you still have those kind of bases of you want to do well, you want to do good, you want to do right by others. When in business, I always say, create win-win scenarios. You win, the other person wins. You do things like that, and then reality will show you the parameters. But you don't have to beat people down with that with your entertainment. I don't think you have to do that.
I'd agree.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
But there is a difference. There's entertainment for children and there's entertainment for adults, which is also what's weird about film now, is there's no entertainment really for adults. It's all kind of like PG-13. You market everything the same way. Kids can watch this, young adults can watch this, and adults can watch this. Well, there used to be a deviation, a difference between those things. And now everything is just for everybody. And I think that's kind of wrong too, because the morality that works when you're younger isn't the same as when you're in your early 20s or when you're in your later 30s or our age.
Thank you, Captain Greg. I appreciate that. Our heroes are supposed to be something to live up to. We get smashed by life all the time. They help us see things in a better way. Otherwise, it would all be just the Punisher, which I love too, by the way. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's fine to love that stuff. but you also have, as Art said, there's entertainment for kids, and there's entertainment for teens, there's entertainment for adults, and you just have to, make sure that the right stuff is going out into the right places.
The thing, though, too, is that a lot of these superheroes were first created, again, by Depression era kids who were striving for something good. Remember how bad the Depression was, when 25% of the workforce was, was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cost, the standard of living was far below what it is today. So people were struggling, even ordinary people, middle class people were struggling if there was a middle class. And then the next generation, I think, when comics really hit with the Silver Age, were these guys that came back from war.
Yeah.
They had seen heroes. They had seen sacrifice. They knew what it was. They got it. And now, you have pamper generation after pamper generation where everyone gets a trophy, blah, blah, blah. And going back to my, rounding back to my first rant, and I apologize, Graham, for going off subject when I first started with, the everyone gets a trophy, and the good guy, the villains really don't realize they're the villains.
Yeah.
And their thing is to attack and to be negative and all this stuff. And I mean, I'd love to ask these SJWs, what's a hero to you?
Right.
And it's like, what is a hero to you?
They think they're the hero, Billy.
And they're awful. And they're
gonna point to themselves.
Heroes to them are people that go on Twitter as tough guys and try to shut down anybody that disagrees with them. That's a hero to them.
Oh, with a zinger and a burn, right?
Mm-hmm. A drive-by, as I like to call it.
Yeah. Today's
don't
kids are bitches.
Don't forget your obligatory virtue signal.
Well, that goes without saying. Yeah.
You can't get away from heroics without some of that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Graham. If you see, Herrenberg has an amazing point. What he wrote at the last, if you would pop that up.
Basically, superheroes were created by Jewish kids who were banned from working in Madison Avenue, inspired to the idea of the American dream.
And he's 100% right, because they changed the world. They by those Jewish kids, you think Schuster, you think Siegel,
Finger.
I'm trying to say from Bob Kane. I'm trying to say from Bob Kane,
Kirby,
Eisner, and Kirby and stuff like that. Because Kane was he was a bastard. Kane,
he was.
But what they did is these kids that were Depression era kids because they couldn't get into the club.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting into Madison Avenue. They may have been the most brilliant. They might have been Jackson Pollock. And they couldn't get in pre-war.
Well, look how many of them changed their name.
Yeah. Yep. So many of them did.
Yeah.
Jacob Kurtzberg.
Well, let's not compare with Jackson Pollock as a genius.
Yeah.
Not Jackson Pollock. I'm sorry, and not Jackson Pollock. I'm thinking. No, forgive me. I'm thinking of. Forgive me with that. I'm thinking of the designer.
Jackson Pollock.
Nope. Not Jackson Pollock. Give me a second.
You're redeeming yourself here, Billy, because I have a big problem.
You guys talk about yourselves. I'll find who I'm talking about.
I've had conversations with art connoisseurs, and they swear by it, and I'm like, no. Jackson Pollock is just a pretentious blowhard.
No, it's not Pollock. I'm not talking Pollock. I'm talking.
What did he do?
He's one of the most amazing designers of the 20th century. He's got an SBA, and for some reason, I'm thinking Jackson and Pollock. Is it one of them? One of them words is a Pollock. He created the amazing zebra. Maybe he created the I Love New York. Oh God, he's one of the most influential.
Yeah, I know who you mean. He just died a few years ago.
Yes, and he was a son of Jewish immigrants and all. Oh, why am I?
It's okay. It's okay.
Let's do creator. I Love New York. Who created?
I just
wait a minute. I got to pull this one up
because I hate that guy. I just think he's a blowhard.
Tara
no, it's
Wombat.
not Pollock. It's not.
Tara
Milton
Wombat says
Glaser.
Bob
Milton
Kane is
Glaser.
giving
I'm talking
too
about
much
Milton Glaser.
grief.
That's a whole. Yeah.
He sold the shit out of Batman, and people hated that he fought for a piece for himself.
No, he
No.
fucking he
that ain't how it was.
Really robbed Bill Finger of a lot.
Yeah, that's not how it was.
Well, then, see, that's a great Professionals. You know, let's dissect Bill Finger and Bob Kane.
Yeah.
That's a great episode.
And don't forget Dick Sprang, man. Don't forget Dick Sprang.
Yeah.
And Jerry Robinson.
Yeah, there you go.
Jerry Robinson's contribution.
Jerry Robinson, yeah.
Robin, the Joker.
The Joker, yeah.
Graham, this was a fantastic stream. Fantastic.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun, guys. But we'll close it out now. We've been on since 2, so we got 2.5 hours.
Herrenberg, Glazer got it. Yeah, Herrenberg got it. Milton Glazer. So.
Yep, there it is, Glazer. Yeah. So
man, that's totally Jackson Pollock. That's totally Jackson Pollock.
You know, Dan, you joined 15 minutes ago. I've been
You're right, zinger. You know what?
I haven't had lunch yet.
Yeah, well, I had lunch today. I did.
Dan's doing a drive-by here.
He's doing a drive-by, man. I
I
got my
can't
Florida
drink.
boy here. I got Tex over here.
Yeah. You got
I'm
Atlanta
the new
here.
Captain America. I'm going to ride the rails. I'm going to fight crime.
That up, boy.
There you go, buddy. The hobo Captain
cap
America with a garbage pail top.
Hobo
All right.
cap.
Thanks, Graham.
Hey, thanks, guys. Tune in next week for who do we say? Oh, it was Aaron. Aaron's holding
It's Aaron.
hosting
Okay.
Professionals next week. Saturday morning Western Roundup this week is Vera Cruz.
Ooh.
With Burt Lancaster and Gary Cooper. So that'll be a fun one. And next Wednesday on the usual time for the Storytellers, I have David Williams is scheduled to come on and talk about his work on Matt Reeves. And I'm trying to get Kevin Graveau on as well, the writer. So hopefully
Kevin's awesome.
I'll hear back from Kevin, and we'll get those two guys on, and we'll be talking some fun shit.
Kevin's really entertaining too. He's a great guest.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Ron Garney show was awesome.
Oh, you like the Ron Garney show?
And also
Yeah.
everybody, we all have books in demand right now. So check those and please come by. We all have YouTube channels as well. So come by, sub. Andy Smith had to take off early, so go by, sub his channel. And who else am I missing? Aaron Lopresti. Yeah, go back his channel as well.
Check out all those guys' YouTube so that you don't miss any of the Professionals.
Amen.
Yeah, because what we do is we rotate on each.
Well, I think what
every
Art's
week
trying
we
to
do
say is
the
we
show
rotate.
on one of the.
All right, boys. Love you guys. I hope you guys
What
have a
did
good
I
night.
say?
you
your audio was going out. Art.
Yeah.
You froze again.
Oh,
Frozen hat guy.
So, have a great weekend, fellas. And we shall see you next week.